We are live. All right, welcome to BenThere, episode 13. I say this every week. I know that, I get that, but every week I get excited for this. But this is going to be a good one. It's somebody that I know fairly well, I'd like to say, even though it's been probably 30 plus years since you and I have even had a conversation, Matt. But we'll talk about that in just a second. Welcome to the show, everybody. Just let everybody know right up front, we do have a little bit of Wi-Fi problems. If we go frozen, don't panic. We'll get you right back on and we'll get the show going live. But as of right now, everything's okay. I can see and hear Matt.
The problem is, I think, Ben, is that I'm in Monday. The problem is I'm in Monday and you're in
That's
Sunday.
True. That's
so
true. You're in the future, man.
You know, we're in different times. I'm in the future, and
totally.
We haven't quite worked out that technology yet. So sorry to interrupt.
That's fantastic.
Please continue. It's Monday morning.
I blame you. The rest of the world is back in Sunday right now, so it's all good.
Talking to you from the future.
That's right.
No, we're ahead of you. We're ahead.
Yeah,
of
that's
you.
what I'm saying.
Did
I say the future? I meant in the past, or I guess in current time. There we go. So.
Right,
Yeah, no, it's all good. But let me jump right to it. So welcome everybody again. BenThere, episode 13. We've got a good one for you. Before we get to it, I just want to make sure I give some thank yous out to all those of you that are watching right now live, either on Facebook or on YouTube at the BenThere channel. Make sure specifically on YouTube that you guys subscribe, because we're trying to push the YouTube more than anything. There's nothing wrong with Facebook. It's been a great platform and we'll stick to it. But make sure if you're on YouTube, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to that. Wanted to also just say that, obviously I want to get to this interview because I have a feeling Matt and I are going to talk for a while tonight, and that's cool. But the concept is simple with this show. This is about, showcasing people, showcasing people and their stories, especially those of us that grew up overseas, known as third culture kids or trans culture kids. That's what this is about. I just want to brag about people that I, know, and people that, either I grew up with or didn't, but either way, they ended up overseas or whatnot. So that's the concept. It's a simple concept. I can't wait to get to this interview for a lot of reasons. He's a TCK himself, third culture kid himself, but he's also a writer. And being a writer myself, Camille Funk was on this, as Matt, I'm sure you watched. She's a writer as well, and I love having writers on because we just have that. I feel like, even though I haven't talked to you, Matt, in 30 years, I feel a kinship to you, brother. So I love that what you're doing right now, and I can't wait to dive into this. So let me give the quick bio on Matt. It's probably one that most people have already seen. But Matt Davies is our guest today. He grew up in Australia and Taiwan and has lived in the UK and China as an adult. He's had lots of jobs in various sectors: hospitality and the hotel industry, fitness, film and video production, and corporate communications. Since 2006, though, Matt has been a full-time writer. He has written a self-help book for new parents. He's ghostwritten 6 published books, edited more than a dozen textbooks, and writes for various websites and private clients. Most of his freelance writing, editing work these days is in the health sector. However, the reason, one of the many reasons I want to get to plug your book, and this is kind of exciting for me, but Matt's first novel, The Thing of Darkness, we're going to talk about that in about an hour, was published in 2018. He is now working on 2 more novels. Matt is coming to us live from Melbourne, Australia, where he lives with his wife. And now you said 2 grown kids. Are they actually, how old are your kids, Matt? Welcome to the show, by the way. How old are they?
Thanks. Good to be here. My daughter is 20 and my son is 18. So yeah, they're
okay. So they are grown. Yeah. So
it's pretty amazing. Yeah. They're grown. I mean, they still live at home. My son's a senior in high school. Okay. So yeah, my daughter's working. So they're grown.
Every time I hear that, man, I can't picture. I don't have kids yet, but it's just one of those things. I'm like, how does he have a 20-year-old? We should all be like 15, 16, right? So it's all good, man. So
look like Debbie Krieger. I mean, her kids are in college and they're real grown. And then like Tim's got pretty young kids, and Camille. It's just, I guess, just whenever you start,
Absolutely,
we started
man.
Young.
Yes, that's all right though. Speaking of Debbie Krieger, she was one of the first to write on this. So there you go, right there. I don't know if you can see that, right? Can you see the little writings below in the comments? Can you see that?
Yeah. From Debbie,
good. Yeah. So
I can see Debbie. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. But yeah, listen.
Love Debbie.
She's
who
awesome.
doesn't love Debbie?
No, who doesn't, right? There's no way. usually the way I do this is I introduce you briefly, but I want to kind of talk about you and allow you to kind of talk about a lot of things. The one thing about you too is I probably didn't mention this, is that you did go to TAS. You didn't graduate from TAS though, right? You went back to Taipei American School. You went back to Australia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But usually the way this works is I let the guests kind of talk about themselves and kind of brag about themselves for the last 20 years, maybe even 30 years. So what have you been up to since the Taiwan days, man? Go ahead and tell the people.
Well, I left Taiwan in the middle of 8th grade. So it was the end of 87. And so I'd been there and so I went midway through 5th grade and then all the way to the middle of 8th, and came back to Australia, back to the same community that I had left, the same area, and finished high school and went to university. Mm-hmm. So at university, I did a double degree in media studies and Chinese. So I went there wanting to do journalism. That's what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a journalist. Then I did 2 years. I did 2 years of my degree, and then I decided to defer for a year, and I went to live in the UK. Wasn't a very well thought out plan. I had some friends, TAS friends, TAS friends who were traveling in the UK. Well, when I went there. So this was January '94. Okay. I went there, and I had so there was 5 of us from TAS who met up.
Who? Just out of curiosity.
2 of them were British. So usually 2 of them were British. Karen Daniel and Sam Dickinson. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So they were living there. I mean, not in London. They were living out in England, the real England, and we were in London. So they were there, and then Australian friend Kira Cook. So she'd been living in the UK for like a year, and she was kind of at the end of her stint. And then another friend, Tom Wolfenden. He had come from the US. He'd been spending some time in the US. When he came to Taiwan, he came from Australia, but he's technically a New Zealander. So the 5 of us all caught up, and it was great. We had a great time together. And Kira and I went and did a bit of traveling together in Europe. Tom left wherever he went, wherever he was going, and the other two girls went back to their lives. Mm-hmm. So Kira and I traveled, went to Amsterdam, and we went to Bruges, and then we came back to the UK, and she was kind of at the end of her trip. So she left, and I remember I remember going out to Heathrow with her to the airport on the tube and saying goodbye, and then coming back into London, and just thinking, like, it just started to hit me that I was on my own. Like I was 19. I'd never lived out of home. I'd never had to make my own food, wash my own clothes, nothing like that. And it just hit me that I was alone in the city and I didn't know anybody. Yeah. And I just got overwhelmed and started to cry. And I'm sitting on the tube and just crying, thinking, what are you thinking? You didn't even think this through. You're going to be in this big city for a year, and now you've got to work everything out. And anyway, so I got up the next day and I looked for a job. Ended up finding a job in a hotel, working on the reception, and it was pretty dodgy. I was in a hotel room, this little hotel room with 2 other, like German guy and this Croatian girl, and it was just the 3 of us in this little hotel room, this tiny little freestanding wardrobe. We had to all put our stuff in, and I met this girl there. And we became friends, and she found out that I was an Elvis fan. So she's like, I know this great place that you'll really love. So she takes me to this restaurant in Piccadilly Circus called the Rock Island Diner. So it's an American 50s diner. Yeah. And as soon as I went in there, I just loved it. Like they had a live DJ, and all the servers, they had like these 50s, those little hats on and little buttons on and stuff like that. And I just thought it was the coolest place. I said, I've got to get a job here. So, I mean, the good thing about the hotel job was that I got to live there. I got my accommodation sorted out. That was fine. So, but no, I have to get a job here. So I went for a job, and I got a job there as a busboy initially. With this location, because I don't know if you know Piccadilly Circus, but there's like, there's a big roundabout, and in the middle is that statue of Eros, and there's 2 big buildings on the side. Like, so it was right in one of those buildings. So it overlooked that famous kind of roundabout there in Piccadilly Circus. And so yeah, I got the job there. So I had to leave the hotel. I had to find somewhere to live. So I moved out with the girl I was living with in the hotel room. With the two of us moved out together. And yeah, I mean, that was an awesome experience. Like that was the start really of my time there. So most of the friends I made there were Americans, because they obviously American 50s die. They wanted to hire young Americans. So it was Americans who were traveling through London. Yeah. So yeah, and it was a cool place. And we used to dance on the bar for the customers, like we the hand jive and all this kind of 50s things. And we used to serve on skates on a Sunday. So we'd be riding around with our burgers in our hands on roller skates. It was like that. And it was really cool. And so we were open, the restaurant was open late, and then we would go out. So we would go out to nightclubs and all that sort of stuff. And, everyone was young. I was 19, and it was a very cool time in my life. Like it was really my coming of age, because as I said before, I'd never lived out of home or anything like that. And just to be in a place where nobody knows you and you can just be whoever you want to be. And, I guess I did, there's a lot of experimenting, and I did a lot of stuff that I did there that I would never do again. And I didn't ever do again afterwards, but that's what being young is all about. I guess it's like that college experience, isn't it? In Australia, we don't tend to move like you in the US, you tend to move away and you go to college, but we tend to stay at home, and we go to college in our home city, and we live at home oftentimes. So that was my first sort of going away experience. So then I left the UK and, via Memphis, came home. Got to go to Memphis. So
really?
Went to Memphis and came home and finished my the final year of my degree, and always thinking that once I finished my degree, I was going to go and live in Taiwan again. Okay. So that was the plan. I thought I'll do this last year, and then I'm going to go spend a year living in Taiwan, because I've been studying Mandarin at university, and I just wanted to go and be back in Taiwan again, which I'm sure you can understand.
Yeah, so totally.
I finished that year, and I ended up getting together with a girl during that year, and happens to be a Novelist fan as well. And
there you go. Is that the let me stop you real quick.
And
was that the connection to Memphis? Is that why you went to Memphis? The Elvis connection, or what?
The Elvis connection, yeah. So I've been to Memphis probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 times now. Don't judge. Actually, that's the way I met my wife. Actually,
perfect.
Anyway, I'll come back to that later. But
okay.
I'll come back to that later. So the year finished, and I was all set to go to Taiwan, and I went to, I was ready to go, and I remember being another one of these experiences. One thing you're going to find out about me as I'm talking about different parts of my life is that I'm quite an emotional person, and it's
good, man. We all are. Yeah, I am too. So
like this.
You've seen me almost cry on the show like 4 times.
If I have to take, if I have to take a break at times, you'll understand why.
You're fine.
So I remember going through, saying goodbye to everyone, and then sitting at the departure gate, on my own again. Now 21. So this is 1996. Sitting at the departure gate, and again crying, thinking this is the wrong time to be doing this. This is going, this is going really well with my girlfriend. It's, this is the wrong time to be leaving, and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, I got on the plane, and that was kind of soon forgotten. And I arrived in Taiwan, and so I hadn't been there since 87, the end of 87. Yeah. And I was really surprised actually at how easily I found my way around. Because, when I was living there, when you're 13, you don't need to know how to get anywhere. You get cabs, or, your parents drive you or whatever. But I was like, I knew how to get from the American club to the school, and from the school to my house, and, all those things, like, through TMU and all that. Like, I found it really easy. So those first few days in Taiwan, I just, I went back to all my old haunts. I wanted to go back, and, obviously that's what you do. You go and you look at all those old places. So I went to the American club. Yep. Walked in there as if I was still a member. Just walked in past the desk and and walked in, and actually ended up running into Miss Clyde Newman. Remember her? So teacher from TAS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, so that was out, that there was the terrace, and then there was like that little outdoor area and then the tennis courts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she was sitting in that little outdoor area.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went out there and we just had a chat and stuff. So she never taught me, but my parents were friends with them. So
okay.
So that was good. And then I went up to Yangmingshan. So we had two houses, one after the other. You lived there too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Where did you live?
Yeah. Gosh,
Where did you live?
I can see the house in Yangmingshan. I lived in a bunch of places too, just like you. I lived in Yangmingshan, I lived in Tianmu, and I lived in Damshui, if you can remember that. Damshui, way up north. So, but yeah, we lived in a bunch of places.
Where in Yangmingshan
too.
did you live? Yeah.
Man, you're killing me here.
How come you kept moving?
Just rent, and my dad was actually not with the corporate anything, so he was working his own and self-paying. And so we just rent came up, or they raised the price, or they, how it is in Taiwan. They just decided that they wanted the house back or whatnot, and so it just by fluke. But when my Taiwan days, I think we lived in three houses. Yeah, my parents lived in 4, but I remember 3 before I went to college. Yeah, so
wow.
Yeah. So I love the Tianmu location.
So
was
we
the
spent.
Best, yeah, go ahead. We have a delay, folks. I don't know if anybody can realize this already, but we definitely have a delay. So I'll go ahead and ask my questions after you talk, brother. So go ahead. It's all good. It's all good.
Talking. So this first house was in Yongkong Road, and I went to see it, and we only lived there for a year. We had some bad experiences in the house. So that first year, we had 3 kind of things that went wrong. I don't know if that house had bad feng shui or what it was, but the first thing that happened was that we got robbed. Oh. And I don't know if you've ever been robbed before, but it's very, especially when you're a kid, it's very disconcerting to be coming to your house knowing that some stranger has been there and has been going through all your stuff. So that was pretty kind of scary as a kid. And then the next thing that happened was we came home one day, and so we were sort of we lived sort of on a hill, and it was a wet day, and a truck had smashed into the front, our big front fence. You know how they have those big concrete fences with the broken glass on the top. Yeah. So we had this guy, so it makes it so secure, doesn't it? There's little shards of glass.
It's the poor man's the poor man's barbed wire. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah. So this guy had smashed into this fence, and he was driving one of those little, those little blue trucks that you used everywhere. I don't know if they're still there. Those little blue, they had like a little cab on the front and a little tray. And anyway, so he was in one of those little trucks, and he had something on the back, like some kind of earth moving equipment. So it was like a bobcat or something like that, something which would have been much heavier than the truck itself. Yeah. So he was coming down the hill and obviously lost control, was wet, smashed into the fence. So we came home, and no one had attended to this accident yet. There was no emergency services there. And the door was flung open, and this young Chinese guy was hanging out of the door dead. He had died. And so we came home to this dead guy outside our front of our house, just hanging out of this truck. Yeah. So that was a strange experience too. And then so the third thing, just to top it all off, the damn thing just burnt down. So we came home one day, and the house had caught fire while we were out, and the fire was put out. But seriously, and so we came home, and it was still standing, like structurally it was still standing, but it was all blackened inside. We lost all of our stuff. And it was just like, well, there you go. These things happen in threes. I don't know, but it was just
wow.
So that was pretty. Yeah,
I had no idea.
That was our first year in Taiwan.
Yeah, welcome to Taiwan, right? Yeah, wow. Yeah. I had no idea, man. That's wild. So yeah.
Yeah. So then I think I guess the one positive thing that came out of that is that we had to be put into a different house. So my dad, the reason we were in Taiwan is my dad worked for Ford, the car company. Okay. So there was a house further up the mountain. You know where the McDonald's is now?
Yeah.
I don't know. The McDonald's wasn't there. It wasn't there when. Yeah. No. On Yangmingshan, McDonald's at the top.
Oh.
Maybe it wasn't there when you were there.
No.
Anyway, it was up near there. So this house was vacant because someone had left. A Ford guy had left, and Ford was renting it. And it was it was above my dad's pay grade because you get allocated a house based on your status in the company, I guess. Yeah. And I mean, the first house was pretty impressive, 3-story house, and it had a pool and stuff, and it was impressive. But this second house, it had this massive front yard and this pool, 7 bathrooms, like 7 bathrooms for 4 people. 4 people? What are you going to do with 7 bathrooms? Anyway, it was ridiculous house, right? Ridiculous. My bedroom, I had a double bed, a single bed, an upright piano. I have my own bathroom. I have my own balcony.
In your bedroom?
Oh my God! When you're a kid, in my bedroom. So it was just like it was just a big house. It was just a crazy house. So I'm 21, and I go up to this house, and I'm standing at the gate, and I'm just kind of another one of these fences with the broken glass on the top. And I look over the gate, over the fence, and there's this kid in the yard. This little blonde kid. He's probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. And I'm like, hey, he's like, and I'm like, I used to live here. And he's like, oh, and he goes inside. And then this man comes out, and this white guy, and he's like, can I help you? And I'm like, oh, you're Australian? And he's like, yeah. And I said, oh, I used to live in this house when I was a kid. And he's like, oh, really? Come in. So I went into the house, and looked around, and it wasn't much different. And I stayed with them, and I had lunch, and it was good. It was a really good experience just to do that. And then I went to TAS. So I went to the old campus because I was at the Wenlin Road campus.
Yeah.
And so at this point, the European school was using the old high school, so the horseshoe section. They were using that, but then the elementary school was like just this dilapidated war zone, like windows smashed and kind of knee-high weeds, and the pavilion was gone, and it was just it was just sad. It was sad because I had so many good times at that school, and I loved that school so much. It was it's such a big part of my time in Taiwan, and then to go there and see it like that, and I kind of wish maybe I hadn't gone back, but
it's always bittersweet,
really,
right? It's always sad. Bittersweet. Yeah, when you go back, it's always bittersweet. So, now that's fascinating, man. I had no idea your house.
So then, so that was my first. That was my first few days in Taiwan, and then I realized that I didn't feel right being there. Like I just didn't want to be there, and it made me really, really sad because Taiwan was so special to me, and I was so looking forward to going back. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why I felt out of place or didn't want to be there or what it was. And it really disappointed me. I guess it made me sad. I know what it was now. But then I had no idea why. So I had originally I planned I was going to stay in Taiwan until like maybe September or October or something, and then I was going to go to China and look around for a few months and then come home. So I ended up, after being in Taiwan for like, I don't know, 5 days or something, I ended up changing my plane ticket and going to Beijing. So I had so I knew one person in Beijing, someone I'd been studying Chinese with at university. She was there on a gap year type thing, like a scholarship thing. She was studying at a university in Beijing. So I got on this plane. I land in Beijing, and it's January, so it's winter and it's very cold.
It's cold.
I wasn't prepared for cold because because Taiwan, even in the winter, is not that cold. Right. So I didn't have any big boats or anything like that, and so here I am. I land. It's probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I find out which bus do I get to go to this university. I think it's called Beijing Language and Culture University, something like that. And they're like, oh yeah, you get 294, whatever. So I get this bus and I'm going out, and it's getting dark because it's winter, so it's getting dark really early. And people are getting off, and I get to the end, the bus stops, everyone gets off, and I say to the driver, where's the university? And he's like, oh, no, that's not this bus. That's 249 or something. Like I got on the wrong bus.
Yeah.
And so now it's dark, and it's freezing cold, and I'm on this. I'm who knows where I am. I've never been to Beijing. I don't know anything about China. And so there's this hotel across the road. I stay in this hotel. So the next day, I get a cab out to this university. And I'm walking around saying, this girl's name was Linda, and Linda Smith. And I'm like, anyone know where Linda Smith is? Anyone know Linda? They're like, oh yeah, she's in the international building in number 4 or whatever. So I go over there, and I'm getting in. I'm walking around, and anyone know Linda? Anyone know Linda Smith? And I go on and knock on the door, and she opens it, and she's like, holy crap, what are you doing here? So that was fun. Those moments are always fun. I love surprising people like that. So
she didn't know you were coming.
She was at the end of. No, she didn't know I was coming. I didn't know how to get in contact with her. Like there was no email or anything. Yeah, so so I didn't have a phone number. I just wrote letters to her a few times, but way back in the day. So I showed up, and I met some of her friends, but she's at the end of her time. So we spent a couple of weeks together, and then she left. But by that stage, I had met some of her friends. I stayed in a dorm. I mean, the university didn't know I was there, but one of her friends, 2 American guys, actually, that are in this dorm, 3rd bed. So I slept in there, and I just met people, and taught a bit of English. I taught English to this Italian businessman for a little bit of a time. And then I saw this ad for a job, and it was in a television production company, and they were looking for someone with a British or Australian background. I'm thinking, I wonder why. So I applied for this job, and it turned out that this job was transcribing British television shows. So literally pressing play on the VCR.
Yeah.
Typing out the dialogue, or probably writing it. I didn't know. Typing out the dialogue, say, and then pressing stop, and then listening to the dialogue, and so they wanted someone with that background so they could understand the accents and understand the humor. So I did that for a little while, and then someone said to me, "Why don't you just send your English-speaking embassies?" Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay. So I sent it to the Australian embassy, and the Canadian, and the American, and the New Zealand, and the British. I just sent it everywhere, my resume, and be in contact with me. And ended up getting a job there. So I worked in the immigration. I'm not Canadian. I've got no contact, no connection with Canada. Yeah. But ended up in the immigration area there, and that was another great job. Canadians are great people. They're like Australians, really. And that was a great experience. And so I did that, and I also taught. I worked at a gym at a Kempinski in Beijing. At a Western hotel, worked in the gym there. So I had a couple of jobs, and that was just another great year of just being somewhere different and being kind of on my own, and working out some stuff, and it was good. And then when I came back, this girlfriend that I had, she had been living at home and working and saving money, where I had been, traveling around and spending money. And so we came back and we bought a house together. So she's been saving, so she had the money for the deposit. Money. I mean, we're not engaged or anything. We just we just bought this house together.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then so that was at the beginning of '97. We bought this house together, and then in August '97 we went to Memphis. So every year in August, every year in August there's Elvis week, because Elvis died in August. So we went there for that, and then we came back, and all our family and friends are like, oh, so how was it? Anything happened? Got any news? And I'm just like, no. What do you mean? It was fine. We had a good time. Everyone was talking about us getting engaged. Everyone was talking about this, like, and it didn't cross my mind once. But I guess now looking back, that would make sense. We're Elvis fans and we're at Elvis's house, and that would be a good place to get engaged. Anyway, so didn't occur to me, occurred to everybody else. And then so she told me later that she'd kind of put it out of her mind and thought maybe Valentine's Day or something like that. But no, we got engaged Christmas Day that year, so that was 97.
Okay.
And then we got married and had 2 kids, and kind of gets put on hold, I guess, a little bit. And it's all about raising the kids, and so that was 15, 20 years, and and now we're sort of at the other end of that. So we're at a different stage. We're at a different stage in our lives now, with the kids grown up and not relying on us so much anymore. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. So that's the last 25 years.
Wow. I don't even
30 years, I suppose.
That's not years. Right. That's not at all what I was expecting you to say. So that's amazing, man. I don't even know where to begin right now, but usually where I go from here, you kind of hit a couple of things. But realistically, I know you're a guy who's traveled the world. You've lived overseas. You've lived in Taipei. You've lived in the UK, and you also spent time in Memphis. I know you didn't live there, but you spent time there. But obviously, you're an Australian guy by passport. So the number one question I always love to start these off with, and I think I already know the answer, but let's see what you say. Where is home, man? Where's home to you?
It's definitely Melbourne, where I live now. I was born in Melbourne. We had a stint when I was very young in Sydney for 3 years. That was before I started school. So and then I grew up mostly in Melbourne, and then Taiwan, and then back to Melbourne, and I've been here ever since. And I raised my family here. All my family's here. My parents and my brother's here, and it's definitely home. And if I wouldn't want to live anywhere. I think it's the best city in Australia. And why? I mean, all my family's here, and I mean, if I was to move, I'd move overseas. I wouldn't, why move somewhere else in Australia? When I can be near my family. And the thing with my work is, I suppose I can kind of live anywhere. But Melbourne is definitely home, and I know that a lot of TCKs struggle with that idea of home. But I think because I've spent so much time in Melbourne, and and also with the family. And all that sort of stuff. So it's it's kind of an easy one for me.
Yeah,
Is your
definitely.
Mom chiming here?
Yeah, it's my mom. My mom loves the show. She always watches it, but she's talking about the fact my dad and I were out one day, and I was in Boy Scouts back in the day, but we got hit from behind. My dad and I were out doing some kind of scout thing, and we got hit from behind. It was kind of like what you were talking about. You talked about your house burning down. I had no idea. But this was probably like the most, thinking back to Taipei days, this was probably the most like left a lasting impression on me when we got hit from behind. The guy actually died. But my dad and I were just out. We were doing nothing wrong. We were off the side of the road, but the guy fell asleep at the wheel and hit us from behind. So that's what her comment is right there. Yeah. So it's kind of wild that we all.
How old were you?
Man. 11, 12. We lived in Dam Shui at the time, so I want to say it was still middle school.
It was in Taiwan.
Yeah, it was in Taiwan. So that's what she's talking about right there. But yeah, hey, it looks like we have another guest on.
It's funny that your mum used the word lorry. Your mum uses the word lorry. That's such a British word.
Well, I don't know if you knew this. We actually lived in Hong Kong before Taipei, so we had a lot of it. It was back in the day when Hong Kong was still under British rule. So we spent a lot of years there, and we learned the terminology fairly quick. So, but yeah, my parents were actually overseas for 30 plus years. They went to Singapore after Taipei. So, yeah. So, but no, they're definitely well cultured and traveled. So my mom she always chimes in, which is awesome. I love it when she writes. So, but it looks like we have one of your family members on this right now too. So that's awesum.
Yeah, it's my daughter.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
She should be at work. She should be working. I don't know what she's doing.
Right. No, it's all good. So let's talk positives and negatives about growing up overseas. I know you were only in Taipei for 3 years. I don't know why in my head I thought you actually graduated from TAS, but I guess you were only there 3 years, huh?
You thought I graduated from there?
I did. I don't know why. I mean, you know how it is. Everybody just assumes everybody's the same.
Yeah, I was only a year above you, so
yeah, 92. Yeah, no, I know, but like it's been 20 plus years, man. So I just assumed you did, but yeah, let's talk about the positives and negatives. I mean, I know you only spent 3 years there, but according to your website and according to all the stuff I kind of researched on you, you talked about the fact that the Taipei days were very significant to you. So if you don't mind, like, what do you think in your eyes, like positives and negatives about growing up overseas? Go ahead and talk about that. So
yeah. Well, it's such an impactful time and in my life, and I've got such vivid memories of that time, because everything is like, when you go to a foreign country like that, everything is just in full color and such a completely different experience, and just the American school, because I came from a different school system, so that whole thing was very different, and the culture in American schools is different from Australian schools, and
sure,
the whole community sense of community, and I mean, my childhood, as happens with a lot of TCKs, is like broken up into before Taiwan and after Taiwan, and it was kind of. I mean, I became a teenager in Taiwan. And so it was that kind of growing up part of my life. And, like everybody says, just that opportunity to see, experience different people. And it wasn't just Taiwan, it was being in an international school. So having that experience of meeting people from all over the world, and it not even like, kind of registering. It's like, oh yeah, you're from France or you're from Germany. It's like, oh, whatever, when we're just kids and we just hang out, and it's not really a big deal. You don't really think about it. So I think, that, and I think that kind of stuff, you don't realize the positive impact at the time. It's not until later years that you think, well, I'm probably the way I am because of that experience, but at the time it's just, you're a kid, you're just living your life, and you're just enjoying it. And I mean, and obviously we were given so many opportunities, and I came from a public school in Australia, and then I went to TAS, which is an elite international school, and then came back to a public high school in Australia. So it was very obvious, the differences in the life, and I mean, it just, and our experience was that it was just I guess in some ways it's like being in a small town, like everybody knows each other, and a very close community. And, for us, we kind of had, well, for me anyway, there was this kind of, the whole community was with this little kind of triangle. We had TAS, and we had the American Club, and we had TYPA. So everything was kind of in there, like that was our lives. And we knew we'd go to the American Club and we'd see people we know. You go to TYPA, you see people you know, and it's just, I mean, that was our little bubble, if you like. And I mean, that was a really great thing about there. I mean, I don't know what it's like in other international communities, but for that, it was in Taipei. I think it wasn't like, the school wasn't, it wasn't cliquey. Like, you didn't have, I mean, of course there were some kids who were more popular than other kids, and, some kids who were nerdier than other kids, all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't a barrier like it is in other places. Everyone talked to everybody, and it wasn't like, I'm this person and you're that person, so I can't possibly talk to you or be seen with you. Remember that feeling, like it was just, it was very collegial, and we had a really good community there. And you don't know what you got till it's gone, until you leave.
Wow,
that's anymore is when you really realize what you had.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to sum it up. I've talked about this, a couple hundred times on the show already, but it was just, that was the center of the universe for me. Like, it didn't matter what we were doing or who you were with. Like you just talked about, it was, the school was everything. It was kind of the epicenter of the community, whether you realized it or not at the time. But it's
absolutely.
Yeah. What about negatives?
It's such a great school. And, and it was, and the other thing, I was just going to say with the school
Sure.
is that it wasn't just our education. It was our social life. We had those dances and all that sort of things, and it was our sporting life. I mean, you had IASIS, and there was obviously sport was a really big thing at school, and then for other people it was music, or it was drama, or they're in the productions or whatever it was, and so that was our whole life. It wasn't like when you live in a town in the US or Australia or whatever, you might have your church group over there, and you might have your soccer club over there, and you might have your cousins over there, and you have all these different kind of communities that you're a part of. But in Taipei, it was just it was one community, and we did everything within that community, and yeah, it was good. Negatives, like everybody says, the constant goodbyes, the grief. I was there for 3 years, and I had 3 best friends, one the first year, and then he left, and then one the second year, and then he left, and then one the third year, and then I left. So, you're always saying goodbye to people who you become really close with. And that's the hardest thing, I think. But other than that, it's all good.
Yeah. It's funny because you talk about I think you and I, well, I've heard you say this too, but like the freedoms that you had over there, I felt more free as a kid growing up overseas than I did the summers in the States. It was kind of, it is what it is. Like you come back in your grandparents' house or family's house or things like that, you kind of feel constricted. But yeah, I felt more freedom as a teenager, as a pre-teenager overseas. I mean, thank God for like American Club in China, right? Thank God for TYPA, because it was just, and the fact that it was safe. I know people don't believe that, but at the time, I don't know how it is these days, but it was safe. So.
Yeah. And when you tell people about, I was probably 11 and 12, and catching cabs on my own, and getting around, and like it seems bizarre when I think of my kids when they were that age. I think no way I would let them do that. But for our parents to think this is safe, and I'm happy for them to do that. And I went riding on so we had a yard boy, and I went riding on a motorcycle, no helmet, nothing, just off we go down the street, get some food at the end of the street, and like it was it was a very safe community, and we had a lot of freedom. And I imagine I wasn't there for high school, but you were, and I imagine you had even more then. But that would have been fantastic. But a lot of I never felt. Of course there was that time we got robbed or whatever, but it just generally because the people are just so fantastic and so welcoming, and just lovely, and want to talk to you, and there's such a great positive feeling there. And
that's great, man. You and I very similar opinions of it, so that I can't agree more. So the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. There's no way around it. So it's just
for sure.
And the negatives are so petty that like it really.
But when you think about it, though, I was going to say, when you think about it, some of those negatives, though, they don't. They're that you're losing friends and so forth, and that's kind of negative at the time. But I think those kind of things can creep up on you. You will know this. They can creep up on you later in life, and because there's kind of this unresolved grief, I guess. Like when you from place to place, and your parents don't understand. They're trying to do the right thing by saying, "Oh, it's so exciting. We're going to this new place, and you're gonna make new friends and all this sort of stuff." But inside, you're like, "But I'm saying goodbye to my old friends, and I don't want to leave this place, and I don't want to say goodbye to my pets, and I don't want to leave my home. Even though you've lived somewhere for a couple of years, and that sort of stuff, and no one ever talked to you about it, and it is, like what were you, 17, 18 when you left? When you left
17.
Taiwan?
Yeah, 17.
College?
Yeah.
So that, when you think about it now, that's that 17-year-old Ben was, in a sense, kind of died, like there's no going back, and you left, and it was supposed to be exciting. I'm going to college, new adventure, going to the States, a place you hadn't lived in for a long, long time, and a place that you probably didn't feel you knew that well anymore. And it's you need to go through a grieving process, but you don't, because no one tells you that you should be grieving, because why would you be? And but you have suffered a loss, and it doesn't get acknowledged. And especially for TCKs move around a lot. I mean, I imagine that, with that happening over and over again, that can really build up, and, maybe lead to things later in life that you don't even realize that is the source of it, maybe things aren't going well, or you're feeling out of place or whatever, and you don't know why. And, maybe it's because you've had these experiences and you haven't kind of grieved them, I guess, in a way. So, so that's one, I guess, negative of growing up that way. But I know we're going to be talking about, coming home later.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that can creep up on you, I think.
Yeah, it's funny that two things real quick. The only negative I truly had was the one constant. You already alluded to this, but it's just the concept of saying goodbye so many times. That's probably the biggest and only, to be honest with you, but it's a huge thing. It's the concept of saying goodbye over and over and over again. You say hello a lot too. Let's not be, let's not take that away. But you definitely say goodbye so many times. I mean, we lived in Hong Kong for 3 years, and I was in third grade to fifth grade in Hong Kong, and even that was detrimental. And you're right, you're 100% right. You never really get the chance to understand it until you're a little bit older, and you still don't understand it. Like even now, I mean, we're 30 years removed almost, but it's the one constant. And probably the only specific negative is always saying goodbye. You never get used to it. You think you're getting better at it, but you never really do. I loved what you said, because it does kind of creep back into your life later on, and that's totally true. I have never met anybody that grew up overseas that didn't. Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, I'm just disappearing here for a second. I'm just plugging in this iPad because it's running down. I know we're going to be here for a while.
There we go. Yeah. No, I always tell all my guests it's usually about an hour and a half show, but we always go 2 hours. I don't care, man. This is awesome. I used to get, the first couple of shows I got told that they were going too long. You know what? I don't care. This is awesome to me. So it's people that understand it.
Yeah.
They get it. But let's jump into what you were talking about. Let's talk about that acclimation process back home, because I know what it's like to be someone who grew up overseas as an American, came back to a very small town, college area. I think I've told this story before, but when I first got back to the States, I mean, nobody understood what I was doing. I got put into the international kids section, even though I was an American. It was so confusing to myself and people and even the administration at the school I went to. So many things, right? But I could do you one better, though, because when I went to Boise, I ended up transferring schools, and I ended up in Idaho and finished at Boise State. And it was a great experience. But when I got put into the dorms there, on the day we all moved into the dorms, on the little door of our dorm, there was my roommate at the time, Asian American guy. He was from Twin Falls, Idaho, and so his name was on like the little roster thing on the doorway, and underneath it was an American flag. And then you went to my side, and because my parents at the time were still living in Taipei, I put Ben Vogel, and then hometown Taipei, Taiwan, right? So white, total white, 6'2" white guy, and I've got the Taiwanese flag. I can't tell you how many people came knocking, like, I think they got your flags wrong. I'm like, actually, no, they didn't. Yeah. So it was kind of a wild welcome home type of thing. But yeah, acclimation process.
That guy growing up in the US, the other guy.
Yeah. He's of Chinese descent, but he's a Asian American. They lived about 40 minutes from where the school was, but his parents had a Chinese restaurant. That's what he grew up with. But it was so funny because here I am, white guy, Caucasian, 6'2", and they had the Taipei or the Taiwan flag, and then they had the American flag for this guy. And it was like the people kept saying, I think they got those wrong. I'm like, actually they didn't, which is kind of wild. So go figure, right? So but
when we were living in Taiwan, we went to we did this trip to Europe, and it was an American Express tour. So American Express had this office in Taipei, and they we did this like bus tour thing around Europe, and it was so except for us, and and my dad likes to stir people, and so So we're on this bus tour, and like the Americans be like, "Oh, where are you guys from?" Because we hadn't even really used train stands. And my dad's like, "We're from Taiwan."
That's awesome. Yeah.
And you're like, "What?"
Nobody believes it ever. Nobody believes it. Yeah. No, that's funny because my dad sadly he passed in 2011, but he was just notorious for my dad grew up very similar to how you grew up and how I grew up. He grew up overseas. He was a military brat. My grandpa was in the army for 30 plus years, my dad's first language was actually Japanese. He grew up after World War II, or then they were in Japan. But long story short, my dad he was born in Virginia, which is a southern state here in the U.S. And he, for whatever reason, he lived there about 6 months, but he always claimed to his southern roots, right? So, but we go overseas and we get in an elevator. My dad, without fail, it doesn't matter what nationality people were from, they walk into the elevator, and he just give them a good old U.S. howdy, right? So he'd be like, "Howdy," I'm like, "Dad, what are you doing? Like, you never." I've been to Virginia more days than you live there. Like, it was one of those things, like. But that's just the way it was, and it was kind of a good thing. But I want to kind of steer back to this though. The acclimation process, I knew it as an American college kid. It was tough, and it was. You started talking about this, and I want you to kind of get into this a little bit more. But when you come back, you were so right. Especially 20 years ago, nobody told you that this is going to be very different. Nobody told you that moving back to your home country was going to be such a process and such a internal struggle, because to this day there's issues I still have being back in the States. But what was it like being an Australian kid moving from Taipei, Taiwan back to Australia?
Well, I remember when my parents told us that we were going to move to Taiwan, and so I was 10 and my brother was 12. And I remember where we were sitting in our kitchen in this house we had at the time, and
the talk,
they
right?
told us
the talk. Everybody has the talk. Yeah.
Yeah. We were like, no way. I mean, like we had, because in Taiwan, we'd never been overseas, and Taiwan just meant nothing to us. And it was, you could have said we were going to Mars. Like it would have been just the same kind of thing. It was just the most foreign concept ever to us, and so we were just like, no way. And then I remember on the way over, so you can't go, there's no direct flights from Melbourne to Taipei. So definitely wasn't then. So you had to go via Hong Kong. I remember going to Hong Kong and being there and not really liking it, thinking it was a bit whatever. And I remember being in the airport in Hong Kong, and the customs people, like the staff, were just touching my hair. Like I had this fluffy blonde hair, and they were just like fascinated with my hair. Like the staff, you would never do that now. That's so unprofessional. But they would, and it was just the strange thing. And then I remember flying into Taipei and just feeling at home straight away. I don't know why, what it was. I cannot explain it, but it was just I felt good there from the very beginning. And leaving there was just, it was probably the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me in my childhood. It was just, my brother and I did not want to go. We just loved our lives there so much. And I guess the other thing for us is we knew exactly what we were coming back to. So we left one community and we were going back to that same community in Australia, and we knew what it was going to be like. And we did not want to leave. It was terrible. So we just came back and kind of got back into life, and it was just, you just get settled back into it. But I think the one that was more had a bigger impact on me was when I came back from the UK. So I had been there, I'd been there for a year when I was 19, and I came back, and it was just, so much had happened to me in that year. I had changed so much, and I came back and my friends were the same and my family was the same and everything was the same in Australia, but I was different, and it really took me a while to find my place again when I came back. So that was probably the hardest one. Well, I mean, Taiwan was hard, but in terms of my my life back here. And then coming back from China was okay, because I had sort of I had this girlfriend, and I'd finished my studies, and I was kind of ready to start my life in a way. Like I kind of thought, okay, my young kind of adventures are over, and I'm going to go back. And I'm going to get a career job, and I'm going to see how this goes with this girl, and and all this sort of stuff. And so I was ready for it. I was ready to come back and kind of settle down, I guess, if you like. So that one was probably the easiest one.
That's good. Yeah, it's everybody's got a story when they talk about acclimation. So I appreciate that. Yeah, all I know is the U.S. side of it. So that's why I always ask that question. I appreciate you answering that. So let's talk travel bug. Do you still? I mean, obviously the world's kind of a wild place right now with COVID and everything else. But do you still have that itch to move around or travel around at least?
I do. I mean, I like to travel. My wife loves to travel.
Yeah.
So we try to get away a bit, and we wanted to give our kids some some international experiences. So we traveled a bit with the kids as they were growing up. So yeah, we've done quite a bit of travel. I haven't lived anywhere else since I came back from China. But yeah, we travel a bit, and I did think about for a time. So when this girl that I ended up marrying, Rosie, her name's Rosie. When I was living in China, she came to visit me, and we did a bit of traveling together. We went down to Shanghai and looked around a bit. And
spent a couple of years in Shanghai.
And
so
I remember saying to her at that. Yeah, I know. It was hot. Yeah. It was hot.
Yeah.
So so we were there, and I remember saying to her, just letting you know, I don't know if this is how this is going to progress or whatever, but one day I want to come back to Asia and with my family and live. And she's like, okay. I said, I'm just putting that out there. I just want to give you, fair warning. So that was kind of in my mind, but it never happened, just for different reasons, career reasons or whatever. It never happened. But I was prepared to do it. And my brother did it. So he lived in, he's 2 years older, he's class of 90.
Okay.
He went to Singapore and lived there for 6 years. He's been back for a couple of years in Australia now, but he was there for 6 years with his family. And he, same thing. I think he just wanted to give his kids the kind of experience that we had growing up.
Yeah.
So there's an Australian school in Singapore. So the kids went to an Australian school, and they were pretty connected to an Australian community there. But yeah, so he got to do that for his kids, which I would have liked to have done, but yeah, didn't happen. And
do your kids understand the way you grew up? I mean, is that something you guys talk about or have talked about?
Well, I mean, they obviously know the history. And in 2017, I went to Taiwan for my 25-year high school reunion for GAS.
Oh, nice!
And
wow.
I took my son. Yeah, I took my son. So his name is Ben too.
So good name. Yeah, definitely good name.
And good name. So he was 15, I think, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time, so it was at the end of the year. It was in December, and he'd finished his. So in Australia, our school year goes the same as the calendar year. So we have our big break over our summer, which is Christmas time.
Yeah.
So he's in the middle of his senior year at the moment. So it was at the end of the school year. So he'd finished school. My wife was working. My daughter was in Vietnam, just on a school trip in Vietnam. So I thought if I go to Taiwan and I leave him here, he's just going to sit here and play PlayStation, for a week by himself. Yeah. So I thought I'm going to take him with me. So so we went together, and it was great. It was the best thing. So we went to Hong Kong, and as I said before, you have to go through Hong Kong. So we stayed in Hong Kong for a night, and we hung out there. And then the next day we went to Taipei, and again, took him to all the old places, showed him all the old things. We went to the American Club. And now there's a turnstile there, so you can't just walk in there like we used to do. But they were going through some renovations. At the time, so we just kind of snuck our way in. And so I, explained to him this is where we used to hang out all the time. We'd go there and watch movies and, videos, and we'd eat and we'd swim and go to the gym and played squash and all those things we used to do at the American Club. So, I explained that, and then went to this, and then we did went to the houses, the same houses, had a look, and then we did the tour of the school. We had a school tour, and so I'd never been inside.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess you'd never been to the new TAS.
Before.
Yeah, that's crazy. I thought you would spend at least a year there. So sorry.
Yeah, you've never been there.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, no. So I think the school moved in 89,
90,
maybe?
90. Yeah, 89, 90 was the first year. So yeah. Like Debbie Krieger's grade was the first to graduate from there. So yeah, 90 was the first graduating class. So yeah.
So I went. I did the tour there, and because it was there when I was there in 96, but I didn't go to the school.
Mm-hmm.
But we did the tour, and that was interesting. It's funny because it was like some parts of it were familiar, because obviously the logo and that little that thinking man guy that's there. I don't know his story.
Yeah. He's still there. Still there. Yeah.
And, he's still there, and or now the pagoda's back too from the
that's what I hear.
Island.
That's awesome.
I just saw that happen recently. But so there's those kind of familiar things, but then obviously it's a completely different campus, and a couple of teachers still there from when I was there. Rockovitz, I saw her. I mean, like, just amazing that so many years can go by.
If I remember right, she's actually
there or whatever. And
Miss Rockovitz is actually still there, believe it or not. She was my Chinese teacher in 7th grade.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh yeah.
Great.
Amazing. But I guess why would you leave? I mean, so many teachers stayed there for a long time. Hey, just thought of this. A couple of years ago, we did a reunion, a TS all years reunion in Melbourne. So me and another alumni.
Who else?
Robin Benedetti. So she was Robin Benedetti was organizer. She was her and I, and she was quite a few years older than me. Thinking maybe 88, maybe. I was about 8. I'm not sure. Anyway, so we just kind of put the word out. Anyone in Australia who's in Australia who wants to come, we're just gonna get together. And it was mostly younger people, people who I didn't know, like even like from 2005 and stuff like that. Like, so most people I didn't know, but Mr. Tossie came. So Tammy Tossie, remember the Tossies?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So Tammy Tossie, I think Tammy, she was maybe a little bit, I don't know what year she was, but she was probably around that kind of 1991, 89, 90, I'm not sure. But she, but yeah, I mean, they were there for the whole time, like Davies family. They were there for the like, I think Tammy was there from kindergarten to graduate. And she lives in Sydney, and so her dad happened to be visiting. Mr. Tossie happened to be visiting from it. So they came, and so that was really good. It was really interesting to talk to him as adult to adult, to one of your old teachers, and talk about his experience of working there and raising a family in Taiwan and stuff like that. It was it was really interesting. It was good.
Yeah, it's wild. It's so wild to see, like, because people that I've actually seen since Taipei days and where I've seen them at. I mean, there was a ton of TAS people in Shanghai, which was kind of a nice little surprise to me. But yeah, I mean, there's reunions all over the place, so it's kind of a nice, we talked earlier about the downside of growing up overseas is saying goodbye, but yet here we are 25, 30 years later, and we're able to say, hello again. It's always right there. So it's amazing how many people, globally, Go ahead.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it's kind of, it's like you and I did not know each other.
No, we spoke, but I wouldn't say, we didn't know each other well.
Probably never. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I knew Jason, and I mean. Yeah, I mean, I thought confession here. I thought he was the coolest. Like,
my brother. Yeah. Well, here, it's funny you say that. Watch this. Boom.
Yeah,
there you
go. Because I did because I think the main reason was I was also a gymnast. I mean, not at his level, but I trained at 2IPA as well, and I used to see him there, tumbling along the mats, and I just thought that he was just so cool. And I remember this one time actually. we had this dance at school, and it was by the pool, so it was an outdoor one.
Yeah.
I
remember that.
Out by the pool.
I do.
And I don't think you guys had been there that long.
No, we moved in 6th grade. My brother was in 8th grade. Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, he was probably in. Yeah, he was probably 8th, I guess. And yeah, I remember we were, like when you, as you do at dances, you get around in one of those circles, and people get in the middle and they do stuff, and so he gets in the middle.
Yeah.
So Jason gets in the middle. Yeah. And he does this back handspring, right? In the middle, like on the concrete, and he's wearing his shirt and his pants, whatever, and he just whips this thing out, and I'm just like, wow, this guy is so cool. And anyway, so yeah.
That's funny because he was
looked up to him.
That's great to hear because he's listening right now. He's watching right now. But he when we were in Hong Kong, that was his thing.
There he is.
He's a badass, and he could. By the way, to this day, he can still do a backflip. So I mean, I admire that. I everything hurts when I wake up in the morning.
It's so funny when you Oh yeah. I was going to say, it's funny when you, like, when I saw him. So I saw him, the interview he did on the global nomad. Well, it's called. Yeah, I saw him on that, and it's funny because like I saw, as soon as his face came up, I kind of thought, wow, he's so different. Obviously 30 years have gone by. But then as soon as he started talking, as soon as that laugh, he loves to laugh, and he's got the same laugh. And as soon as someone starts talking, it's just like. Right. Yeah, it's like you're back there again, and that's what I was going to say. You were saying you ran into people in Shanghai and that, and it's not even. I think we had that connection with TAS people. It's not even that you were in the same year level or whatever. You just have this. Yeah, like I said before, it's like you all grew up in the same hometown.
Yeah,
it's like, let's talk about our because you have that thing in common, and but I guess you probably don't tend to. In school, get to know so much the people under you as you look up to the people above you. So so I would look up to the people in his year. These cool guys like like Chris Yu and Ernie Shin and David Tan. Like all these guys were the coolest guys, like the best dressers, and they were just really cool guys. And then my brother's year, like his friends, like Tim E. Gold. I loved Tim and Scott McCann and these guys. When you're a young guy like that, you look to those older guys for cues on how to be maybe not a man, but like how to be a 14-year-old. When you're a 12-year-old, you're looking at them and this is how you be a 14-year-old.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I don't know. I'm sure you watched Debbie Krieger's interview, but I point blank told her, like, back in the day, my whole world. I mean, I was big time into sports, but my whole world, it wasn't Michael Jordan, it wasn't Magic Johnson, it was Tom Eagle, it was those guys that I would go on Friday nights, beg my parents to let me go to the varsity basketball game because those were my idols. Tim Birmingham, Scott McCann, all those guys. It was just like I knew who Michael Jordan was, but it didn't register to me because I couldn't relate. I could relate to Scott McCann, I could relate to Tim Birmingham, I could relate to all those guys, and that's who I wanted to be. It wasn't an NBA guy. I wasn't a Major League Baseball. Yeah, and it's just, they probably didn't realize it at the time. And looking back now, I after I left TAS and I would get emails from guys that I didn't know. It's funny you say that about the people behind you, because I got those same actual emails. By then email was a thing, but I got written up like, hey, you made me really work hard to be a better this or this, and I'm like, who are you? I didn't even know, but it's the same concept. It was like, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I
wonder what it's like now for sorry, I was just going to say, I wonder what it's like now for kids in that situation, because we are so connected to the rest of the world online. You can watch TV shows. I mean, because when we were there, we used to watch TV shows on VHS. At the American Club, or borrow them from the American Club.
So, by the way, so illegal.
Yeah, you didn't really keep up what would happen. Yeah. They had like these, and they had the ads and stuff. Like people had just recorded them off the television. But we didn't. That was only our only connection. We didn't. You kind of your culture back home. and you lost touch with your friends because, you sort of, I think that's the difference between the TCK experience. One of the big differences between the TCK experience now and when we had our experience was that we pretty much let go of our old lives. You would leave a place and you let go of it because I wasn't going to call my friends. It was so expensive to make phone calls, and and we didn't write. I mean, like a 12-year-old boy, I'm not going to write letters to my friends, And so you sort of let go, and that, I guess, allows you to jump in a bit deeper in your new place because that's your whole world. So I wonder what it's like now for TCKs who still have, that connection. So they're looking at Instagram, they're looking at old friends going to their prom or whatever it was, and like they're missing out, so they're still kind of half there, and they're seeing all these things happening back at home and seeing what their friends are doing, and their friends are going to concerts and stuff, and those artists are not coming to wherever you are in Asia, and like they're doing all these things that you can't do. And I really wonder what that's like. Now, it's different.
Which it's funny you say that because my next question was actually advice-wise. What would you give advice in terms of growing up overseas, or even families overseas that are currently abroad, or those that are about to find out, have that talk that we talked about to make the move? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I think what I'd say to parents, because I wouldn't have been able to hear this advice when I was a kid. It wouldn't have kind of meant anything to me. But, I would encourage parents to themselves and also for their kids is to really engage with the host country and the culture. Because, when we were there, when my experience was, we pretty much lived in an expat bubble. I mean, we took the good parts of Taipei. We didn't kind of dive in deep or, like really have cultural experiences and, so I guess I would encourage that. Like, that's what I would do now. And obviously whenever I travel somewhere now, I want to see how the local people live, and I want to eat local food, and I want to do all those things. And I mean, we did do that. You go to the market and you'd go buy food, whatever. But yeah, I think I would. I mean, we had the perfect opportunity to learn Mandarin, and you just don't care about those things when you're a kid, do you? I mean, it's just you don't think about those things, but you're right there. You've got these opportunities, so I would kind of encourage people to do that. And I would also say that to try to make the most of every minute. I mean, we knew we were only going to be there for 3 years, but a lot of families don't know how long it's going to last.
We didn't.
You're there for a bit, and then something happens, something changes. Yeah, when you left, the Hong Kong.
We were told 3 years.
Yeah, a month or something, and it's like.
Yeah, we were told 3 years in Hong Kong and 3 years in Taipei, and we were in Taipei for 7 years. So there you go. So.
Oh, yeah. But you don't know when you're going to leave. You don't know when your friends are going to leave. So you don't know when things are going to just change. And you have no control over it. When you're a child, you have no control. I mean, if I had my choice, if I had my time again, I would have loved to have stayed and graduated from TAS. I would have loved to have done that. But it's completely out of my control. And people leave and you can't do anything about it, and you leave and you can't do anything about it. So, I mean, I would say make the most of your time there, and kind of wherever you are, and really get into it and appreciate it.
No, that's awesome. Great answer. Before we move on, we're going to transition here in a minute, but I got to go back to Sean McKeon's question. He wants to know. I mean, you'll probably understand this better than me, but are you a Roos fan? Do you see that?
A Roos fan?
I'm assuming he's Australian because Sean lived in Australia for a long time. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not sure what he's. Well, so in Australia we have we're a very big sporting country.
Yeah.
I think we're a lot more sport orientated than we are arts orientated as a nation in general. And so we have our own, I don't know if you noticed, but we have our own brand of football, Australian rules football.
Yeah.
And that started in the state where I live. It started in the state where I live. And so it's massive in the state where I live. And then it branched out, 20 years ago or something, it branched out. And now there are teams all over the country. So it's a national competition now.
Yeah.
But way back, it started in Victoria. And, we have cricket and stuff. And then other states, we have rugby. So rugby is big in New South Wales. It's big in Queensland, and they started there, and now they are national competitions. yeah, so we're kind of a real football state, and then other states are rugby, and yeah, we have cricket, and we have basketball's become very big here now, and soccer has become really big here now. We have a lot of European background people, so like Italian background and stuff in Australia, and so yeah, soccer has become in recent years really, really popular here as well. So yeah, so I'm not sure what he's talking about footy. So he's talking about Kangaroos, which is North Melbourne. And no, I don't follow the Kangaroos. I follow the Lions.
Sorry, Sean. Sorry, Sean.
There you go, Sean.
No, that's awesome. Let's completely transition now. I mean, this is obviously I wanted you on because you're a TAS guy and your background and everything else, but as one writer to another writer, I wanted to definitely have you on because you're writing. Let's kind of transition into that. Before we do, though, I want to make sure I get this up here.
Okay.
I'm gonna switch out my little brand, the BenThere.org, and I'm gonna give you some pub on your book. There you go. Can you see that?
Oh yeah.
There you go. So let's no worries, brother. That's why I wanted you on too. I want to make sure we plug your book. So let's talk about your writing. When did you get started with that? When did you know this is something you wanted to do?
Well, like you, it took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do.
I'm still trying to figure it out, by the way.
Different jobs, and I had kind of
yeah.
I had a lot of different jobs and a lot of kind of career paths that I was kind of going down that I thought were going to be the one, and they weren't. And in my 20s, it seems ridiculous now because in your 20s, yeah, big deal, but it did stress me out a lot in my 20s because I had friends who were finishing college, finishing university, and they were going off into their career jobs, and they knew what they wanted to do. And I know you can relate to this. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, and there was always talk, it seemed, about, like finding your passion and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what my passion is. How do you find it? And I mean, now I kind of, know and would advise younger people not to stress about that stuff because you will work it out. Don't worry, you will work it out. But it's at the time it was stressful because I had a family and all that sort of stuff, and I didn't want to be jumping around careers and all that sort of stuff. So I worked in some different industries. I thought I wanted to work in hotels for a while, so I worked in, that wasn't for me. And then I worked in film and video production, and I still do a little bit of work in that writing wise. But yeah, I was working in communications and for a government department, for the health department here in Victoria. And I wanted to branch out on my own. I wanted to have my own business and be my own boss. I liked the idea of the lifestyle of working for myself as well. And kind of, the idea was I would have my own hours and, I'd be able to do what I want and all that sort of stuff. And so, so I left my full-time job, and at the time I thought it was a big deal because, I was leaving a secure job, and it took me a while to take that step, but looking back now, I mean, it wasn't like it was a big outlay to start this business. I needed a computer, I needed a phone, I had those things already, and if it didn't work, I just got another job. Like it wasn't like I was opening a restaurant and I was spending $1 million fitting out this restaurant only to have it fail within 6 months. It wasn't like that. So it really wasn't a big deal. But at the time, it was a big deal for me because I had a family, I was supporting a family, and I was starting my own business, and I had to find clients and all that sort of stuff. So that was back in 2006. So I started this kind of communications business, which is really just now writing and editing for other people. So I've been doing that since then, and that's where it started. And I did have this idea of wanting to write creatively as well. I've always been interested in people's stories, like you. I just love talking to people and hearing their stories. Everyone's got a story, everyone's had interest.
That's the entire concept of this show, brother.
I just love
I love it. Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm that guy, probably like you, who goes up to people at parties they've just met and they start talking about, asking questions about their background and their childhood, and well, how did that make you feel, and what did you think about that, and
totally,
so I'm like that, and so I just love people's stories, and so that's kind of where the creative write, and I just I like working independently. I like working on my own. I don't like managing people or anything like that. I just want to take care of myself and do my own thing. So yeah, I had this writing and editing business, which I've still got, and that's where my income comes from, really. And yeah, I was doing creative writing on the side, so I was trying to write novels, and so yeah, it took me a while and a lot of failed manuscripts, but yeah, I finally got there.
No, that's awesome. Do you think being a TCK had any part in you becoming a writer?
I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to know where these things come from. I mean, even like like you asked that question about the travel bug. I mean, is that because you're a TCK? I mean, my wife, she lived in one house from the time she was born to the time she moved in with me. So
wait,
she loves to travel.
So did my wife. Yeah, my wife's the exact same way. She grew up literally 5 miles from where our house is right now, and that's the only house she ever knew. I lived in 24 houses growing up, so I totally get it, man. Yeah, so I totally get that. Yeah.
But is she interested in traveling?
Oh yeah. No, that's number one. Like if COVID wasn't even an issue right now, we'd be all over the place. Totally. Yeah, she loves traveling. Her mom, luckily for her, she didn't grow up the way. Yeah, she didn't grow up the way we did, but her mom worked for one of the airline companies here in the States, so they would always go and travel, and so yeah, she had the itch too, even before I met her. So it was kind of a nice little perk that many reasons I love her, but obviously one of the things. Exactly the same. Yeah, so it's kind of a nice thing. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're fine, man. Go ahead. We have a little bit of a delay.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
We do. But that's the thing. You don't know where these things come from because I mean, a lot of TCKs, it's no big deal to travel, and like Camille was saying on your show that she's just quite happy to let's just move country, no worries, let's just move and go somewhere else, and it's no big deal. And for me, I traveled overseas when I was 16 to see a Taiwan friend on my own, and I moved to the UK on my own when I was 19, and it wasn't really a big deal because I was comfortable with traveling in airports and that whole process. But there are other TCKs like your brother who stay put. They don't go and they don't move anywhere. They sort of just stay in one place. And there's some who don't want to. They've had that experience and now they want to be settled and they want to stay in one place. And other people who grow up in one place but get itchy feet and just want to be on the move. So it's really hard to know where these things come from. Is it you
me.
Or is it your experience? I don't know.
Totally. No, totally. It's me. I get it. I get antsy. Every couple of years, if I'm not on a plane or this is driving me crazy right now because I'm so used to being on a plane or, just making plans or at least, the concept of going somewhere. It's such a weird time right now with COVID and everything else being locked down. So it's been a struggle. It's people like us, you and I, it's definitely been an issue. So I get antsy, but yeah. So I know you can relate.
So what do you think that is for you now?
Right now,
so you're wanting to be on the move, and what do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's just a combination of how I grew up and just the experience. I mean, let's be honest. I don't know if you feel this way too. I feel to this day, I feel comfortable on an airplane. Like I'm the guy that's sound asleep before we even take off on the airplane, right? So it's just, that's part of who I am, right? So and I feel comfortable in hotels. Maybe it's because I spent so much time as a kid in hotels.
Yeah.
But they're almost relaxing to me. Last weekend,
what do you think it is? Like, do you think it's this idea of is it that you want to see new places, or is it that you're just
I just have that I just have that passion. I think it's just being exposed at such a young age. I think it instills in you that there's a big world out there that not only needs to be experienced but deserves to be experienced. I don't just settle for one thing. And I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. It's just how I was exposed to the world at such a young age. I think that's common for a TCK. So even my brother, though, I think if you ask my brother, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll be quiet.
I was going to say, do you feel? I'm sorry. Do you feel unsettled? Like with where you're at now, not just because you can't travel because of COVID, but in your life, like do you feel unsettled?
Yes. There's a simple answer. The complicated answer is that it's funny. I always ask the question, "Where's home?" Right away. Obviously, home. The concept of home for me has changed over the years, especially since I've been married. Wherever my wife is, that's home. Period. End of discussion. Right. That said, do I or would I love to go back overseas in a heartbeat? You know what I mean? So, I mean, if we could both figure out a situation where we both had jobs and the situation was right and all that, that's definitely something that I think would happen. But right now, if you ask me where home is, it's not necessarily Utah. I live here right now. I'm not from here. I've lived here a lot, many years, but my wife's from here. So, and her parents are here and my mom is here. I've got some family here. So technically, I guess it's homish, but it doesn't feel like the place that, like, when I sit back and think and where is home, I mean, to me, it's still overseas. And to me, it's Hong Kong and Taipei and Chicago even. And I'm from Idaho and I've spent many years in Idaho. And I guess, realistically, Idaho would be home. I've got tons of friends up there and that's where I graduated from college and all that stuff. So I'm just, I'm complicated, as you are probably still. So like, it's just, it's a situation where that's not an easy answer to me.
Yeah, but like you said, I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, keep going.
I just think it's become, since I've been married and since I've been with my wife, it's wherever she is, it's not necessarily a physical place anymore. You know what I mean? And that's kind of an odd thing to say as someone who loves to travel so much, but it's home is the concept of where, you love the obviously the wife and things like that, but it's a situation where you loved and you get loved back. And that's kind of what I've always said about, where we are now in this time of our lives. But it's hard to say, like, when people ask me where you're from, that's such a loaded question. It's so hard to actually, for me, that's why I always make it the first question on this vlog it's just a matter of, like, I want to know where people truly feel home. Cause I don't know where that is. My wife is my home, period. But physically,
but I think you've just identified it. I don't think where home is, and that's with Emily. And like, as much as I think people do sometimes move around because they're looking for that sense of belonging. But so the thing I was going to say before was, you know how I was saying, when I left Taiwan in 96, I was really sad and disappointed because I didn't know why I didn't feel right there. And that I figured it out later. And the thing about that is, you can never go back to a place, like you can go back to Taipei and the buildings are there and everything's the same, but a place is more than the buildings, a place, and Taiwan for me and my school and my community and my life there. And, you can't go back to that, and it's like you, and, as soon as you left, as soon as 17-year-old Ben left to go to college, that's over. You can never go back to that because, I guess for me, I would have been in a situation, when I went to Taiwan at that time, I was staying in a youth hostel, whatever, I didn't have a lot of money, and I was going to have to find a job, and my life would have been very different from when there. And I don't know why I would have had this idea, but I had this idea that I would go back to Taiwan and it would feel like home. But it's a different, I mean, I love it still, and I would love to be back there, but it's not Taiwan of 1987. It's not my childhood Taiwan. It's a different place, and I'd have to be prepared that it's going to be a different experience. It's going to be an adult experience. I'm going to have to find work, and I'm going to have to look after myself and all that sort of stuff. And if in 96 had I stayed there, I would have been living, not earning a lot of money, living somewhere very cheap, and it would not be the lifestyle that we had when I was a kid. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't know why I had this idea that I could go back and get that feeling and have it be like it was when I was a kid, because it's not possible. And even if you went back to Shanghai now, even though you were there as an adult, it would be a different experience. Like a few years have passed, people have moved on, and you'd have Emily with you there now, and it would be different, even just in those few years.
Yeah, totally. That's you nailed it. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I mean, even it's so funny because I had never been to Shanghai before I moved there, and yet I got off the plane and I felt home, quote unquote. I was a single guy back then, and and yet I was lucky enough to go back to Taipei when I was over in Asia. But you're so right. Like it's not. It was beautiful to go back there. I don't know if there's any other word for it. I hadn't been back in 17 years or 18 years, whatever it was. But it was different, and yet it was still home. It was comfortable, and yet it was so foreign in a way, because you're right. It's you're never going to be able to go back to that exact moment in time, and I get that. But there was something so comfortable about it and something so strange about it at the same time, because it wasn't exactly what I was used to. So many things had stayed the same, and yet so much had changed and were different. And I think that's, again, another constant of us being TCKs. I mean, we're always in such a rush to go back, and it's a beautiful thing. And I do think there's a sense of closure when you can go back that we don't always get as young kids. I think that's the stereotype of being a TCK. You don't always get closure, and that can be detrimental in a lot of ways. And even though it was 18 years later, I mean, my parents had moved on to Singapore, and even as a college kid, my parents had moved to Singapore. And I think in 90, man, I'm trying to think now, maybe if mom's watching, she can help. But I think 98 is when my parents moved to Singapore. And so after 98, I never went back to Taipei until 4 years ago with actually luckily Tim Wenger, if you don't remember Tim, he and his family met up with me in Shanghai. They spent some time in Shanghai, and then we all went as a group to Taipei, and it was great. Loved every minute of it, and yet it felt so foreign to me at the same time. But it was a sense of closure. I mean, I'd love to go back. I don't mean closure forever. I just mean a sense that we were able to, like, kind of everything kind of came back full circle. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, the concept of
for
not
some
knowing,
others, like Debbie. I was going to say, like, for some like Debbie and Camille, whose families were still there, so they were able to go back and have a different experience in Taiwan. Like there was like a bit of a transition because they could still go back for summers and still catch up with people, and like that they knew or whatever. And so it wasn't like a all or nothing. I'm gone and I'm never going back. Like it was. It is for a lot of people who leave and their families leave, and then that experience is completely over. There's nothing tying you there anymore. And if you go back there, it's going to be a new experience, and you're going to have to, make new friends or whatever. And it's a different experience.
Yeah, and it was great. It was totally great. When you
mentioned Tim because
go ahead.
because it was funny seeing him on your show, because like the way that I remember him, he was just like this scruffy little blonde kid who always looked like he just got out of bed, and then like and then because he's I don't know what it's like having your parents be involved in the school. And like I remember his dad was the vice principal in the elementary school when I first got there, and they were so like together and well presented and very kind of glamorous. Like they were so good looking, and like they were these, and then there's little Timmy. And I don't know if it's like one of those things like you're rebelling against, because my parents, my dad's the principal or whatever. I'm gonna be the rebel. I don't know what it is, but then to see him now, he's just so together and so responsible, and like it's just, I mean, it's great to see, and what becomes of people, and like your brother, he's so intellectual, so interesting to hear, because we're adults now, we're old adults now.
Yeah, it's and that's exactly why I'm doing the show, man. I want people to be able to share their stories and see what they've become in life and whatnot. So Tim's a wild man, but he's my brother from another mother, right? So it's and then my own brother, he's same kind of concept. But yeah, it's kind of wild to see where everybody's ended up and turned up and whatnot. Everybody's doing well, everybody's doing well, and that's a good thing. So I want to get back to your novel, though. I want to talk about this thing of darkness. Yeah. So I mean, I haven't. I'll be honest, I haven't read it just yet. I've read enough because you get those so many pages free when you actually Google some things, and so I've kind of started it. So now I'll have to do what Sean did. Sean purchased your book, it looks like, so I'll be doing the same thing. But I want people. This is pretty cool. I mean, I've been published myself. I have a book out, but it was nothing. It's not a novel. It's a concept of growing up overseas, which was fairly easy to write.
And it's hard to get. Let me tell you, I heard about your book maybe 5-6 years ago, I think, and I tried to get it and I couldn't get it. And then I tried maybe 2 years ago or something, a year and a half or 2 years ago or something. I tried to get it again, and I couldn't get it.
Well, I'd like to say it's a hot commodity, but it was more so that it's been like since then it's been like it's not published anymore, so that's why it's a hard concept to get. But I'll get you a copy. I still have a couple. I'll send one off your way, so don't worry about that. Keep in mind, I wrote it in 2003.
I heard you talking in previous episodes about two previous episodes. You've been talking about you reworking it or something now.
Yeah, I'm working on another one. It's kind of an updated version, more my personal experience, rather than just here's what you should do, here's the way it's going to be, blah blah blah. That's kind of what we're moving where is the name of my book. But but this isn't about me, man. I'll definitely get you a book. I want to make sure we plug your book, This Thing of Darkness. Tell the people that are watching right now, because there's going to be a lot watching now, but there's going to be even more so watching on replays of this. I've known about it. This is definitely one of the reasons I wanted you on. I mean, from one writer to another. Tell people about this book and what the concept is and whatever you want to say, man. This is I want to plug your book. And if everybody looks in the top right corner, that's exactly the cover of your book. So go ahead.
Thanks for that. Thanks. So this was the fourth manuscript I had written. So I had written 3. So this Thing of Darkness is a young adult novel. I had written 3 adult crime novels. And they were manuscripts. The first one was probably crap. The second one was a bit better, and the third one was probably a bit better again. And I was writing that sort of stuff because that's the sort of stuff I like to read. And and so the third one, I had a bit of interest from a publisher, but nothing concrete. And by that time, I had started writing This Thing of Darkness, and I hadn't. It wasn't sort of an intentional switch to young adult. It was just I came up with this story idea, and I just thought that it would suit. I thought the protagonist should be a teenager. So as soon as you write from a teenager's point of view, it becomes a young adult novel, and it does have sort of crime elements. It has a mystery and sort of crime elements. So I wasn't sort of going too far from what I was writing before. But so that book, I had the idea for that, and that sort of, it came probably easier to me than the previous 3 had come. I don't know, just maybe I had the idea was quite vivid in my mind, or maybe because I'd had a bit more experience of writing by then. But so I wrote that in 2011, and I tried to get a publisher and tried to get an agent, and nothing happened, couldn't get anyone interested in it. And so I thought, I'm just going to keep going. So I wrote another young adult novel, and I sort of put This Thing of Darkness to the side for a bit. So I thought, I'm not going to, this is what I want to do. So I'm not going to stop here. I'm going to just keep going, and I just have to maybe try something else. Maybe this is not the one. I mean, I felt good about it, but I thought, well, other people weren't responding to it, so I thought, well, keep going. So I finished another one, and I saw an article in the literary press here in Australia and about this new agent who had started up, and I hadn't sent it out for ages. So I thought, I might just give it a go, nothing to lose. So I sent it to her, and then 10 days later, I think I got this email. I saw it in my inbox, and I was kind of busy doing something at the time. I saw it and I thought, it's only been 10 days. It's going to be a rejection, because at this point I had so many rejections, and you sort of get used to it. And
I understand that.
I thought I'll just leave that for a second, and then I came back to it and I opened it, and she was like, I love it, and I want to represent you. And I was like, hang on, what? Wow. So I had to read it a couple of times for it to sink in. And so that was pretty exciting. And then she's like, I'll send it out to publishers, whatever. And like I was saying, your heart kind of gets a bit hardened after all those rejections. So I was kind of thinking, well, okay, good luck. I mean, I couldn't find a publisher, but if you can, great, good on you. So she sent it out, and got an offer from Scholastic, which was pretty exciting, because they're big multinational publisher. They have an office in Taiwan, and you know, they're pretty big in the US. And so so that was exciting. But then it took a while. So that was August 2016. It was supposed to come out in August 2017, but just got delayed, and you know, scheduling or whatever, and ended up coming out at the end of 2018. And by that time, I'd written another book. So I'd written 2 more young adult novels at that stage. And the one that I wrote immediately after this one, I kind of shelved. I just thought it wasn't this one because it's really different tone, and just yeah. So that's been shelved. But then the one after that, I've just sort of sent out recently, so that's kind of on submission at the moment. So, but it's a funny time in publishing at the moment because a lot of books are getting delayed, and people's launches, you know, they're not having them, and everything's gone online, and publishers aren't, well, in Australia at least, publishers aren't acquiring a lot of stuff at the moment. So yeah, it's sort of a strange time, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm still going, so I'm always working on new stuff. I've always got ideas. Yeah, just seeing which ones stick. And
yeah, what was the inspiration for the book? I mean, have you always been, I'm assuming as a writer, you know, you've always been kind of creative anyway, but was there a specific inspiration for the book, or?
For this one in particular, you mean, or just writing in general?
Sorry, This Thing of Darkness. Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say? I just cut out of me then.
Oh, sorry. I just said, yeah, for this Thing of Darkness. Yeah. What was the inspiration behind that? So.
Oh, yeah. So the inspiration. So it kind of follows the story of a guy who is being living in juvenile detention for most of his childhood because of a horrific crime that he was involved in. And so I just kind of had this idea. Well, it actually came about because you know, when I was 18, there was a crime in the UK, which you probably heard about, where an 11 and a 12-year-old boy took a 3-year-old boy from a shopping centre and did horrific things to him and ended up killing him. And they didn't really know what to do with these 2 boys because children had never been put on trial for murder in the UK before. And you know, so there's no sort of precedent for it, and they didn't really know what to do with them. Anyway, they ended up putting them in they had separate trials. They went to separate prisons, and they came out and they were given new identities, and their families were given new identities and stuff. And I was in 2010, when I had the idea for this book, I had read a story about one of these boys had been returned to prison on child pornography charges, and I was kind of thinking, I wonder what happened to the other boy. You know, like what became of his life? You know, he left. He's grown up in juvenile detention. He's grown. He's come out of this into this new world that he's not familiar with, and you know, like he's everybody he meets, he has to lie to about his past and who he is, and you know, so there was always questions about culpability and can you forgive someone? Can you rehabilitate a child who has committed a terrible crime? And so these kind of questions were kind of going around my head, and yeah, that's where the book idea came from.
No, I like it. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to order it too, so don't worry about that. I want to read the whole thing because I think I read the first 10 pages. I got those free.
Well, you send me yours and I'll send you mine.
That's absolutely. There we go. That works, man. That's the beauty of writing, right? And writers in general. So yeah, absolutely. But keep in mind, mine's from 2003, so it's not as pretty as yours probably is. So, but we'll go ahead and do that. Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's talk. I want to kind of pick your brain here, just because I know what I do. What is your process for writing? How does that work? What's the timeline? What's from beginning to end? If you can kind of explain to those watching, or specifically me, I'm actually super curious in this, as one writer to another, but what's your process in terms of writing your stuff? Well, you know, writing a novel length work, or you know, like a book is, you know, takes a long time, and especially when you're working full time and you've got family, you've got stuff going on. You know, it takes a long time. You've got to do it in your spare time. So every project is sort of different in terms of how long it takes, because you know, just depending on how much time I have. And I mean, I'm really trying. The last little while, last couple of years, I've been trying to spend more time on it and devoting my time to it, because
I want this to be a bigger part of my life and my income, like my creative writing. I want to be able to afford to spend more time doing that side of things. Yeah. And to get to a position like that, obviously I need content, I need books, I need something to sell. So I'm like, because it's very easy to procrastinate, and, it can be very hard to write a book. So it's easy to find other things to do, like, mowing the lawns and so forth. So, so last year I really pushed myself, and I got, I wrote the first draft of something new last year. And during this period of isolation, my work has really dropped off. My freelance writing work has really dropped off. So I've been working a lot on creative stuff, which has been good. So yeah, this Thing of Darkness, it probably took a year or something to write. And then, as I said, that was in 2011. So I sort of refined, went back to it a few times. And then obviously when it got picked up by a publisher, there was a whole editing process that we had to go through. But yeah, it probably takes me a year or something to write a first draft. And a lot of it, that's not, a lot of it is thinking time. You've got to, I go on a lot of walks, thinking about stuff, and lie in bed at night, things going around in my head, and then, get up and write stuff down. And, I actually do that at nighttime because things don't tend to stay in my head very well. So I'll be lying in bed and I'll be thinking, oh, this would be a good scene, I should do this. And so I know if I keep thinking about it, I won't sleep. So I get up and make a few notes, and then get back to it the next day. But yeah, you've got to sit your butt in that chair, and you've got to just do it. Otherwise, because the words are not going to appear on their own. So you've got to give yourself permission to write crap, because every writer writes crap. you know this. And once you've got the crap on the page, then you can edit it. But if you don't have the crap on the page, there's nothing to work with. So you've just got to. I've become much better at this in the last few years, and that's just giving myself permission to, going easier on myself, I guess, just to say, okay, I'm just going to get this down, and maybe I write 5,000 words of shit, but then it gets to something good, and you're like, okay, well so I'm going to ditch those 5,000 words, but I've worked my brain through where I needed to be, and now I'm at this spot, and now I'm writing some worthwhile stuff. So you've got to really, I think, if you put that time in, but it's worth it, but you got to just do it. You just got to put the time in. So I've been forcing myself to sit down and do it.
It's like the Nike slogan, just do it, right? It's so funny you mentioned procrastination, because I write every now and then, and I really need to start focusing again, because since I've been doing the show, my writing's kind of taken a back seat. And if you go to my website, you'll see that the majority of everything right now is all these videos and these interviews, and which I love. Trust me, this is great. But it's taken some time away from me sitting down and putting pen to paper or typing or whatnot. So yeah, I totally understand that. That's awesome. I'm glad, actually. It's refreshing to hear that you feel that way too, that sometimes it's a procrastination. Just do it, just get your ass up, sit down, find some time, because there's always time. We could sit here and say there's not time, but as writers, we definitely know there's time. So it's about finding that time and just doing it.
Yeah. One thing you've got going for you though now is that you've got, your deadlines are your own, which can be a blessing and a curse. You've got time to do it, but because no one's breathing down your neck saying, you need to submit it by X date. But that can be a procrastination technique as well, because no one's waiting for it. So you're just like, I've got other things to do, and I'll get to it, but you never do, and if you don't, it's never going to get written. The thing with blogging, like with your blogs, it's so immediate. You can work on something, and you can put it out there, and then you can move on to the next thing. But with books, it takes a lot longer, and then the publishing process is long as well. So it's a much longer lead time. But yeah, I would say to you, it's great. These are great. I love these interviews, and it's great what you're doing. But really prioritize what you want, and where you want to be in 2 years' time, in terms of your writing, and just write yourself a note, put it on your computer, remind yourself every day if you have to, or give yourself a word count. I'm going to write 1,000 words a day, or I'm going to work for 2 hours a day, or whatever it is, and just make it part of your routine. And otherwise it might not happen. You just gotta push yourself, and you'll get there.
That's awesome, man. Great advice. And advice I needed right now too, because I need a little inspiration too. So I appreciate that, man. Real quickly, what
do you have a writing community around you?
Not so much.
Like, do you have friends who are writers, or like,
no,
you know, like?
No, no. And sadly, no. But I'm assuming you do.
Well, the other, I mean, one of the things that really helped me, which I think made a big difference to my writing, was joining a writers group. So
okay.
There was two things. You know, obviously you're writing things. Yeah, you're writing things and submitting to the group, so that you're sort of accountable for companion stuff. But the other thing is, I think probably the biggest thing I've gotten out of being in a writing group is being able to critique other people's work and look at other people's work. So, you know, when you're sitting in a group of, you know, 4 or 5 people, you've all read the same piece, and, you know, maybe you're sitting there thinking, you know, there's something about this that's just not working. I can't put my finger on it. And then someone else says, oh, you know, the reason we're not identifying with this character is X, Y, Z. And you're like, oh yeah, of course. And then you learn something about your own writing. And then obviously when, you know, people are critiquing your own work, you know, they're looking at your work, and you start to see the stuff, you know, the patterns, you know, the stuff that you do all the time that is maybe not a good habit, but, you know, like, you know, you always seem to be doing this or doing that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do that. I've got to be more conscious of that. And so you become a better writer from having other people critique your work and you critiquing their work. So I think that's a really worthwhile thing to do. And you can do it online. You know, you don't have to, I mean, it's great to make some friends and, you know, in your local community, and, you know, meet at a library or meet at someone's house, or that you do. In normal circumstances, we meet once a month, but we haven't been meeting because of this. But yeah, and even if, I mean, sometimes no one has anything to submit. I mean, when you're working on novels, sometimes not everyone has something, you know, there's no one in the group who has something, but it's just good to get together and talk about writing, you know, and talk about what each other's doing, and, you know, throw around some ideas, and, you know, make connections. They know someone who, you know, knows someone else or whatever. And, you know, I think it's, that will motivate you, I think, and, you know, make some new friends and talk to people who are like-minded.
I love it, man. Yeah, that's hell, you just inspired me. I'm gonna get my button gear. I need to. Let's talk.
We all need to kick up the ass sometimes.
Yeah, hell yeah. I definitely me. So I get that. What makes a good story in terms of, in your opinion, what makes a good story? Like what is it that you find intriguing, or, you know, whatever it is, what makes a good story?
Yeah, well, yeah. It's a interesting question. It's a hard question. But I guess if you think about the books and the films that stay with you, why do they stay with you? And I think a lot of the time it's because they have had a deeper impact on you. Like there's an emotional impact. I mean, obviously plot's important, you know, something has to happen. But if it's all about plot and you don't care about the characters, then that's not gonna resonate with you. It's not gonna stay with you. So I think you know, heart, emotional impact, emotional resonance, these kind of things, I think those are the things, you know, when you're really touched by something, it stays with you. The story doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be high concept or something. I mean, like, you can think about, you know, movies like Rambo, for example, where people are just getting shot down left, right, and center, and you don't care. You're like, oh yeah, whatever. Another guy's being shot, and whatever. You don't care about them. And then someone, you know, then some kid falls over and grazes their knee, and it's like the most devastating thing that's ever happened. So it's about that connection you have with the characters. I saw, you must have seen this film, being a teacher. I saw this film a couple of months ago on TV. I hadn't seen it for a long time. Mr. Holland's Opus. Have you ever seen that film? Richard Dreyfuss,
years ago, but such great movie.
You should watch it again. It's such a good film. So you know, it's basically about this young musician, Richard Dreyfuss, and he's struggling to make money, and so he decides to become a music teacher reluctantly in this high school, and and it just goes through the years. I think it starts in the 60s and it goes through like the Vietnam War and goes through the 80s, and it's such a touching story. Nothing much happens, you know. It's like he meets a few kids, and, you know, they connect on different levels, and, you know, but it's so touching, and it's so impactful, and, you know, because he's really influenced these kids' lives. And then at the end, spoiler, you know, it's revealed that how much this was his life's work, you know, because he always wanted to produce some big opus, like some big musical piece and be known for as a musician. And, in the end, it's, he realizes, because the student points out to him, a former student, that this was his opus, touching all these kids' lives and changing their lives. And, this was his life's work. And, again, basic story, but so much heart and so much emotional impact. And I think those are the stories that tend to stay with you.
I couldn't agree more, man. I love it. That's yeah. I don't even know what to say, because you hit it right on the head. But what about upcoming? You kind of briefly talked about some upcoming writings you're doing or books you're doing. Do you want to plug those yet, or is it still too early, or what's going on with that? So.
Well, usually I don't like to talk about stuff that I'm working on. I usually like to keep my cards pretty close to my chest, and
I get that.
I just kind of finished something for I just finished something for an older audience. Like getting a little bit away from the young adult thing. I've been working with some stuff with that, trying that, but I am planning and or just doing the research and working on now is a young adult novel set in Taiwan.
Oh, cool.
I had this idea for this book a while ago, and so I had the idea, and then in the back of my mind, I've been wanting to set a book in an international school in Taiwan, fictional school. So this has been in my mind for a while, and then I kind of thought, and I was working on this other book and this other idea. And I thought, well, why don't I just take this story that I'm working on and set it in Taiwan? So I sort of started down the process of refining my plan and stuff so I could set it there, and thinking, I can do this, like it's, I did there, that was my life, I can do this, no problem. But it's I've done more research for this book than I have done for anything. It's just, I've been reading about the TCK experience and reading other people's accounts, watching people, watching your show and listening to TCK podcasts, and just getting all these different perspectives of people, because you have your experience, and you think how it is, but as you've discovered in this show, other people are having all these experiences that you had no idea about. Like, I think it was Ramon when he was saying he went back to Israel. And he was talking about this kind of hidden immigration thing, that like he was an immigrant in his own country, it occurred to me that that would have been the experience for a lot of the Taiwanese background kids who had grown up in the US and then come to Taiwan. So I was chatting with one of my classmates about this, because she had grown up in California. So she was till what must have been about 12 or something like that, and then she moved to Taiwan, and it was, her parents were from Taiwan, and she'd been there to visit, but it was just like her worst nightmare, because she was the only Asian in her school, and she really identified as an American, and first and foremost, and with the American values and all that sort of stuff. And then she was kind of backing away from her Asian background. Like, she was kind of, she didn't want to engage with it. And then she moved to Taiwan, which is the last place she wanted to be, and she was forced to, she was forced to. And then now, as an adult, obviously she embraced it, all that sort of stuff, and that happened probably a lot while she was in Taiwan. But so I'm really interested in that story as well,
which is super common, by the way. Yes,
because when we're kids, you're not going to ask, you're going to ask your classmates, so how do you feel culturally about being in, looking this way, and but being a foreigner in your own kind of country, and you don't think about asking people like that. But I'm really interested in that stuff now, as I know you are, and it's So I want to, I really want to, in this book, I really want to explore all these aspects of the TCK experience.
That's
so
awesome,
I'm really excited about it, and I love sitting down and my head being in Taipei every day that I sit down at the keyboard. I love it, but I'm a little bit I'm really nervous about it too, because it's so important to me, that whole experience is so important to me, and I really want to get it right. I really want it to be good. So I'm a bit nervous about it, but it's just in the early stages now. I'm still chatting with people and hearing people's stories, and like I said, listening to this show and hearing all different people's stories and stuff. And so that's what I'm going to be working on, the next probably year. I mean, it's going to be a year to write it, and then hopefully like I find a publisher that's going to be another year, and so it's at least 2 years away. But I'm looking forward to the experience of working on it.
Well, just from what I've read, you'll get it right, man. I'm not worried about you at all. That's awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll have to have you back on once that's if not sooner, we'll have to have you back on before that happens. So
definitely, I'm sure you'll recognize it. I'm sure you'll recognize a lot of stuff in it, because I mean, I was really I spent a lot of time in the beginning thinking about when I was going to set it, because I was thinking about I thought about setting it in the 80s, when we were there, and then I was thinking about maybe it's an adult who has gone back to Taipei, and it's like the whole thing's told in this kind of extended flashback of remembering his time, living in Taipei. And I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking about setting it in modern times, like undated modern times, because especially younger people don't want to read about the 80s. They want to read about modern times. But I was a teenager in the 80s, and there was, like I was saying before, the TCK experience now is different, because there was no communication with home previously. When we were there, and it's different now. But now I've decided, also with this COVID thing, I'm going to set it in 2018 to the 2018-2019 school year. So no COVID before COVID. And I just did an interview with someone who Debbie put me onto, actually, who was just graduating from TAS, from TAS a few weeks ago. So hearing about her experience and stuff was really interesting, and her expectations of going to college in the US and all that sort of stuff. So so I'm still chatting to people and sort of working it all out. But hopefully it'll be good.
It will, no doubt, brother, no doubt. Let's we're kind of winding down here, so I want to get to these last couple questions. But what other hobbies or passions do you have aside from writing?
What's that? What are my hobbies? What?
Hobbies that you have or passions that you have aside from writing.
Gotcha. Well, like I was saying before, like your kids are young, you every weekend is, my son played sports, and, they played tennis, and my son played football, and I was involved with the football team, and used to do the first aid. So I'd be there and on the sidelines looking after the kids who were getting bashed around, and I was the manager of my daughter's tennis team. And so, your weekends are busy with kids. And then when they're little, you don't really go out, you sort of stay home. And my wife and I be sitting on the couch on a Saturday night and be like, it's like 9:30 and we've just watched something. We're like, oh, want to go to bed? It's so exciting. It's like COVID days, so exciting. But so anyway, but what I was going to say is those years are behind us. Our kids are out till all hours of the night, and don't rely on us anymore. So my wife and I, we go out and eat, and we go with friends. We go away together. We go away and leave the kids home for weekends. And so, I mean, it's like back like your stage, like that stage of, just the two of you, and you can, go do what you want. And so we're really enjoying this time in our lives, and being able to do adult things, and, go on holidays and go on weekends and go to wineries, and, all those old people things that you end up, you think you'll never ever do, that your parents do, and you think, oh, I'm never going to do that. And and then you end up doing it yourself. And
you're reconnecting.
So that's kind of where we're at. So it's
exactly. No, that's good. Yeah, that's good, man. So what's something that people, I know you a little bit, there's definitely TCKs from Taipei days that know you a little bit more, but what's something that people don't necessarily know about you? Like, give me one thing, man.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's always someone knows everything about you. There's nothing about you that someone in the world doesn't know, even though you think it was a really private thing you did with that someone. Everyone, there's always someone who knows everything. But one thing, I don't know if you know this, but when I was at TAS, we had a cricket team. There was a TAS cricket team.
I didn't know that.
You aware of this? Did you know?
No.
Oh, you did know?
I didn't know.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
I don't even know if we made it. I don't even know if we made it into the yearbook. But it was like the Australians and the Brits and the New Zealanders and the Indians and the Pakistanis and the South Africans. Okay. We never played anyone. There was no one to play. Like, there was no IASA. So it was just like we practiced. So we used to practice outside. You know where the auditorium was. There was like a concrete forecourt between the auditorium and the elementary library there. That's where we used to practice there. So we used to.
Okay.
And we used to joke that we were like the national Taiwan cricket team, because as far as we knew, there was no cricket team in Taiwan. So we were like, we're the Taiwanese cricket team. We're representing Taiwan here.
That's awesome, man. I had no idea.
But again, never played anybody else. Never played anybody else. Yeah, just played each other. And it probably only lasted that 1 year and died out. And I don't know what happened to it, but yeah. So that's a very little known fact.
That's awesome.
The TAS cricket team.
I no idea. That's awesome, man. Well, listen, we're actually at the last question. So I don't know if you're a beer drinker or any kind of drinker or whatnot, but usually I always kind of finalize these by asking if there's someone you could sit down with, and even if it's just a beer or just a deep conversation, whether they're alive, still with us, or not with us anymore, who would that person be? Just a deep conversation. Who would that person be?
Yeah. Well, I am a beer drinker.
Good answer. I like that.
And I started drinking beer when I lived in China, because it's a little bit hard to take to. I think beer when you're a kid, don't you think it's hard to take to when you're a kid? Did you ever try beer? I used
to sneak a couple of my
oh, that's a bit strong.
I used to sneak a couple sips of my dad's San Miguel's back in Hong Kong, and I thought, okay, I don't really get it, but then like 5 years later, I got it.
That's it. Yeah. And it's like that with all alcohol, I don't really get this, this is disgusting. Anyway, and then, so in China, the beer is quite watered down, so it was easy to drink.
Yeah.
So I started drinking beer in China. But anyway, so when I was in elementary school, I had all of my grandparents, my 4 grandparents, and that was kind of unusual. Like a lot of my friends, well, hardly any of them, I don't think, had all 4 grandparents, but I was very lucky to have my parents are young. It's my mum's birthday today, actually. My mum's turning 68
happy
today.
birthday.
My dad
happy
just turned
birthday,
70.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Mum. So my dad just turned 70, so my parents are young. But when I was the year before, in 84, the year before I came to Taiwan, I lost my grandmother. So my dad's mother passed away. She was a beer drinker. She loved a beer. And then just after I finished high school, my dad's father passed away. And so I lost them. But my other grandparents, my mum's parents, I had them. They were around when I had kids and stuff, so they were around for a lot longer. But on the Davies side, my dad's parents, especially my grandmother, I never got to know them as an adult. You love them as a kid and you see them as your grandparent and stuff. But I would really love to sit down with them and have a beer, because they both enjoyed beer. My grandfather liked beer as well. And I would just like to talk to them about their lives and what they think about stuff and their childhoods and all that sort of stuff, because you never think to ask those questions as a kid. And but I'd just love to get to know them, so they'd be my dad's parents, my grandparents. Yeah,
that's awesome. No, I love it. I love hearing answers like that, because I feel the same way. If there's anybody I could, it's definitely, I lost my dad's dad pretty early on, and it sounds like I was pretty similar to him. So I'd love to hear his story. So well, listen, man, we are at the end. We made it. So I just first off want to thank you and make sure again that everybody not only checks out the book, This Thing of Darkness, but make sure you purchase it too. Where can people purchase this? It's online, obviously, right? They purchase online?
Yeah. Amazon or Book Depository. Book Depository delivers free everywhere around the world. So you can get it. You can get it online. You can get everything online.
Yeah, that's what I love about now. As opposed to when I first started here in the writing side, you couldn't. So, but I also, if you look right now, your website, that's correct, right? mattdavies.com.au, right?
Oh yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely, man. Whatever I can do for you. But is there anything else you want to just quickly plug or mention or anything before we say goodbye here? It's up to you, man. You've got about a minute, so.
A minute? Then what happens after a minute?
Well, nothing. You got plenty of time, man. I just meant I'm trying to wrap it up. So go ahead.
So as I said, I'm writing this book. I'm set in Taiwan, and we grew up with a lot of kids who had come from at that school who had come from an Asian background and had either grown up in the US or whatever. And now when you look at the profile of the kids at TAS now, it's very different.
Totally different. Yeah.
Faces there now. It's
totally flip flopped, right? It's flip flopped.
Background.
Yeah.
It's totally flipped. Yeah, it has. But I don't want to leave that story out of this book. I was talking about my friend who grew up in the US, parents from Taiwan. I think it's it's a big part of our experience and a lot of kids who go to international school in Taiwan. So, but I'm at the same time. So I'm trying to do my research. I'm trying to understand. Obviously there's not only one experience. Everyone has different experiences, but I'm trying to understand it. I really want to represent it in the book because I think it needs to be there. I think it's important that it's there, but I'm also really aware that it's not my experience, and in some ways, it's not my story to tell. So I'd be interested in hearing from people who think that they have something to offer there with that story. Reach out to me through my website or whatever. I'd love to hear from you about your experiences if you want to talk about them. That would be really good. And the other thing I guess I would say is, obviously you have a lot of TCKs who watch this show. I have an agent in Australia, and I have a publisher, but I don't have representation in the US. So if anyone knows anyone in the US who might be interested in this story, an agent or a publisher or whatever, get in touch. Let me know. That'd be good. Because there must be lots of editors or agents who are TCKs themselves, but don't talk about that part of their lives. So this might be a story that is interesting to them. Or please, get in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, if I'll keep my ears open too, and for sure, man. So I know the struggle. Let's put it that way. I know the struggle. So have
you come across anybody that when you've been looking, have you been approaching anyone about your project? Or
well, it's funny, yes and no, because the publishing company that actually distributed my book before is no longer in business, so you get that. It's just one of those things, here today, gone tomorrow. So I'm in the same boat as you. I'm looking for representation and distribution, all that stuff. So but if I hear anything, if I come across anything, man, you'll be the first to know. I promise you that. So, but this is absolutely. So it's been awesome, man. I can't thank you enough for being on here. I just want to make sure I'm going to go back to your little website here real quick. Hold on one second, just to make sure we can plug this right. So, but thank you so much for doing this. Those of you
saying hello to Fiona.
Fiona
up there.
I saw Fiona in
She
Shanghai.
was the one person who came to the who traveled for the reunion, TAS reunion. Her and I, everyone else was already in Taiwan. We went to our 25-year reunion. Everyone else, I think, was already in Taiwan, but she came over from Hong Kong, and I came from Australia, and we got to hang out, which was fantastic. It was great.
She's fantastic. Fiona, you're fantastic. I actually got to see her in Shanghai too, so it was kind of cool. I definitely.
Oh yeah, really? Oh yeah. I know
she was there. She was moving. I think I just moved there. Yeah, she was. I just moved there, and she was about a month and a half or 2 months away from moving to Hong Kong. So, but we were able to have a drink, and it was good to see her. Yeah. So, but that's the thing about us TCKs, man. It doesn't, and you pick up right where you left off, right? Like it's just instantaneous. It's awesome.
Exactly.
Man. So, so it was never awkward. It was never.
Or even
anything.
If you don't, like we were saying at the start of this show, you and I did not really know each other in Taiwan, but it's very easy to talk to each other.
Absolutely,
we had that shared experience, and
well, that's one thing that's come out of this. I've said it over and over. The whole concept of the show initially was just I was bored in quarantine, and I was interviewed in January, and I thought, why not? Let's just try it. Let's see what happens. And here we are, 13 shows in, and they're getting better and better and more publicity. We're almost at 9,000 viewers, so it's kind of crazy right now. So. But listen, man, I truly appreciate you doing this.
I think the other maybe unintended.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the other unintended result of you doing this, and maybe this was somewhere deep in your psyche but you didn't realize. It's for you to, understand your own experience and a bit better, and your life since that experience, and that sense of belonging and all that sort of stuff, and looking for that. And I guess that's something that's, I think, has been really helpful for me. And I'm sure it's helpful for other TCKs, and will continue to be helpful for them, is just to help, understand and deal with some things maybe I haven't dealt with. So it's a great thing you're doing. It's really good. And I hope
it's so fun.
You and other people.
No, man, it's funny because you hit it again. I've said this 3 times, but you've hit it right on the head. This has been more therapeutic for me. It started off as something that I just wanted to kind of hear everybody else's story, and the more people tell their stories, the more I'm thinking like, well, shit, I'm not alone, right? I'm not this guy that I just thought in my head, like I can't relate to anybody. There's still a core group of people that went through the same things that I did, no matter where they ended up, whether, Australia or the States or wherever. We all kind of go through those same emotions, and it's not always easy to understand it right away. And it's not necessarily a full circle thing, but the more we can talk about it, I think I want people to know they're not alone, and I think that's kind of become the stigma of this. I truly want people to know that whatever you thought you were going through by yourself, you weren't. I didn't realize that until I started doing these shows. I thought I was just kind of the anomaly, and I thought everybody else had it figured out, and I was just clueless for all these years. It's not the case, man. We're all kind of doing this as we go, and we're going to learn life. Go ahead.
And imagine if you had known this when you're in college. Imagine if you had had these chats with people when you're in college, and how different your experience would have been. And like I was saying, I've been doing research of this book and reading about other people TCK's experience, and I didn't even know the term third culture kid a few years ago. I'd never heard of it, and just to hear other people's stories through this, and it's just like you said, it's therapeutic, because you realize that, hey, I had a common experience with people, and this is how it's affected other people, and that's okay. That's because it's okay that I feel the way I feel, and there was reasons for that.
Yeah, and it's totally okay, and it's you're not alone. I can't stress that enough. I mean, Warren Parker right there, he's learning more about himself. I just think there's no template, and I've said this a couple of times on the show. There's no template on nobody, especially back when we were growing up. I mean, nowadays I think it's a little more out there. I think maybe there's some kind of connection where people kind of somewhat give you a direction, but truly, those of us that grew up overseas 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, there was no template when you come back. It was just like, you're going to college now, good luck. And you're supposed to just be able to adapt. And it's not necessarily a black and white thing. There's an issue, and it was never really told and never really talked about. And yet I always thought I was on my own. I thought I was the only one struggling. I thought I was the only one that couldn't really adapt or relate to people. And that's not the case. And that's what I think you said it best. I mean, that's what's kind of come out of the show. And it's not just me, it's a lot of us. I just think we need to talk about it. It's a healing process. I mean healing in the right way, because it's not like it was horrible. We all love the experience. Every single person that's been on the show will tell you there were definitely more positives than negatives. But those negatives are pretty deep, and especially when you try to relocate back to your passport country. So I'm glad this is just an outlet for people, and for all the people that I have on, there's 10 more that we don't have on, but we're all going through the same thing, even as adults now. So I just truly appreciate your honesty and the direction and what you were able to kind of get through to people too. It's just we're all kind of in this together, man. It's awesome, and I love the fact that I've been able to put this out there. So, but thank you so much for doing this. I admire you in a lot of ways. Obviously,
it would be great actually for you to speak to some current TCKs, wouldn't it? Like to get that different perspective on, because our experience is 30 years old, and to get that current experience of what it's like now, and having those connections to home with social media and all that stuff, and that'll be really interesting to explore.
Well, it's funny, we're booked up for the next few. Actually, we're taking next Sunday off because it's Father's Day. Happy early Father's Day, by the way. But the plan is in the next couple of weeks. We've got a couple guys on. I don't know if you know Mark Soderoff. He's on in 2 weeks, but he was there. He's my brother's age, so I think you guys overlapped. I think you were gone before he got there. But anyway, my point to that is I'm going to have not only a younger version of TCKs on soon, but I'm also going to have a parent's perspective as someone who raised TCKs as well. So we've got a couple new guests coming on. Yeah. So July, it's funny. This is crazy, man. I've got people asking to be on, and through July, I'm pretty much booked. So this is wild because the initial couple shows I was begging people just to come on, and now people are asking me to come on. So it's kind of a wild process. So it's but it's a good one. It's a good problem to have. So it's yeah, but either way, man, I respect what you're doing.
And it's only getting better. It's getting better and better.
Yeah, I mean, we still have some technical issues. I'm not professional at this by any means. I'm trying to get there, but I appreciate you. Even our technical issues, we figured it out, man. It's been fine. So, but listen, you truly are a talented guy and a talented writer specifically. So I thank you very much for being on the show. And those of you watching, please pick up his book. Make sure you go. It's obviously available online. Make sure you give it a read. It's a good one. I only read 10 pages and I'm hooked. I'm going to buy it as soon as we hang up here. So I know you said you could send it to me. No, man, I get the struggling writer thing. So I'll purchase it.
No, don't buy it. Don't buy it. I'll send it to you. All right. I'll send it to you.
The rest of you out there though, buy it. Me, I'm good. So
sure.
read it. So, but thank you for being on here, man. We look forward to all your new work. Those of you that are watching, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, make sure
when you're done with yours.
Yeah.
When you're done with yours, maybe we can do a joint launch TAS.
Dude, I would love that.
TAS and we'll launch our books together.
I would 100. That's a dream of mine. That's a dream of mine, man. No, let's do it. Let's get this thing going.
Let's make it happen.
So, yeah, absolutely, man.
I'll send you at the end of every week. I'm going to send you my word count, how many I've done. I want you to send me your word count, how many you've done.
I need it.
Just compare and we'll stay on top of each other.
I need the motivation, man. So that's actually good. You hold me accountable. I'll hold you accountable. It'll be great. So, but listen, man, thank you. I hope all is well in Australia right now because it's wintertime for you guys. About to be, right? Technically.
Yeah, we're going into our winter now. Yep. So now we're at yep. So what are we now? We're 11:30 Monday morning.
Okay.
Going out for lunch with my mum for her birthday.
Yeah.
We're just going into our winter now. So hopefully going into winter doesn't mean we're going to have a spike with COVID because we've been doing so well. Australia's done really, really well.
Yeah, you guys have done well. New Zealand's done well.
That continues.
Well, I hope it does, man. Just stay safe.
I was going to go to Taiwan this year.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to go to Taiwan to research this book this year. And I've been in touch with the schools there, TAS and the European schools, organised to talk with kids and stuff like that. But obviously that hasn't happened. It's not going to happen this year. So hopefully I'll get there. Maybe early next year. Because I do need to. Yeah, I mean you can rely on memory and you can go on Google Earth and you can do all that stuff. But I need to go there. I want to go there.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love it. But just stay safe. I'm gonna start the ending tunes here. Roman's song as always. Thank you for doing this. Make sure you all subscribe. Make sure you check out Matt's website. It's been up there. But yeah, it's a great book. I've only read 10 pages, but I'm already hooked. So I'll definitely finish the book there. But yes, please hold me accountable. I'll hold you accountable.
Thanks.
And we'll go from there. But the rest of you guys watching, thank you for watching BenThere episode number 13. Matt Davies, everybody. Awesome. Thank you for joining, Matt. Ben. And absolutely, man. Don't just hang up. Obviously, once I end this, let's chat for just a minute or two, okay?
Yeah, cool.
All right, man. Let me thank you. And let me try to get Roman's song playing. Here we go. And the rest, until next time. I'm not quite sure exactly when that's going to be, but until next time, everybody, thanks for watching. This has been BenThere, episode 13. Matt Davies was our guest. Take care, everybody. Be safe.